Chapter 24. The Li clan's Thread Iron Mountain City, Li clan. Outside the entire Li family, there were hundreds of soldiers in black iron armor stationed there. Each one of them had the cultivation of the spirit martial realm and was filled with killing intent. These were the Imperial Guards of the Empire. They represented the will of the Empire. The Long clan is finished this time. I didn't expect Li Yuan Wu's master to be the master of the Empire's crown prince. Not only that, the man who came back with Li Yuan Wu is the son of the Jinyuan general. He is the crown prince's favorite. It seems that the crown prince thinks highly of Li Yuan Wu. If Li Yuan Wu becomes the crown prince's disciple, he will be the crown prince's disciple. This status alone will make the Li clan the overlord of Iron Mountain City. Every person who passed by the Long clan's residence was in awe. They were secretly worried for the Long clan. Just these hundreds of black armored soldiers were enough to make the Li clan the #1 clan in Iron Mountain City. Inside the residence, Li Yuan Wu was sitting on the patriarch seat. His father, Li Kong, was sitting next to him. Beside him, a handsome man with sword-like eyes and starry eyebrows stood beside him. He was wearing a divine silver armor, and he was imposing without being angry. The surrounding Li family members were all silent as they exchanged greetings. "Father, you're saying that Li Tian and Li Su died because of the Long clan?" Li Yuan Wu's voice was as cold as ice. Li Kong nodded. He clenched his fist and said sternly, "It's all because of that trash, Long Chun. When the purple mist sealed the mountain, he used some unknown method to kill Li Tian. A few days ago, when your brother wanted to take revenge, he was secretly killed by the Long clan." Li Yuan Wu nodded and said in a deep voice, "Chong Feng, please go to the Li clan again and pass on my message to the Long clan." The silver-armored man on the side shouted. He turned around and walked out. After that, he brought 20 black armored soldiers to the Long clan's residence. There were more than 20 black armored soldiers. Each one of them was at the 3rd level of the Ling Qi layer. They looked like a black flood as they walked on the street. This group of people quickly arrived in front of the Long clan's residence. They were in a neat formation. The surrounding people were all in awe. They couldn't help but shake their heads while staring at the Long clan's residence. At the gate, one of the Long family's gatekeepers saw this scene and hurriedly closed the gate, shouting as he ran inside. "Patriarch, there are a bunch of spirit martial realm black iron soldiers blocking the gate." The old man guarding the gate rushed into the meeting hall in a panic and fell to the ground. Long Tianxing and the others from the Hall of Elders were shocked. Why would the Empire's army surround the Long family? Could it be that the rumors in the city these days are true? That the master, the eldest son of the Li family, is really the master of the first prince of the Empire? An old man cried out. Long Tianxing's face instantly turned ashen. He led the people from the Hall of Elders out of the mansion. Long Hao Yin, who was walking at the back, revealed a smile on his face. He was overjoyed in his heart and felt as if the heavens were helping him. When Long Tianxing and the other elders saw this group of black iron soldiers, their faces immediately darkened. It seemed that the rumors were true. Li Yuanwu's master was really the master of the first prince of the Empire. In other words, Li Yuanwu was the first prince's junior brother. When this thought appeared, every disciple of the Long family felt as if they were struck by lightning. There were countless cities under the Empire. Iron Mountain City was located in a remote corner. How could it compete with the first prince of the Empire? "Sir, what is the meaning of this?" Long Tianxing took a deep breath and walked forward to ask in a deep voice. "I am Xie Chongfeng, the son of the Jinyuan general. I am here today to give the Long family a way out." The silver-armored man stood in front of the crowd with a playful smile. In his eyes, the Long family of Iron Mountain City was just a joke. What way out? Long Tianxing clenched his fists tightly. Cripple Long Chun, break the tendons in his arms and legs, and hand him over to the Li family to mourn for Li Tian and Li Su for 3 years. Otherwise, after the grand competition of the 3 cities, the Long family will be exterminated. Xie Chongfeng's glance made the surrounding people suck in a breath of cold air. The Long family will be exterminated? In the past, even if the head of the Li family had said such arrogant words, no one would have taken it seriously. But now, everyone deeply believed that the person who spoke was the son of the empire's major general, the Jinyuan general. That's all I have to say. If Long Chun is not sent to the Li family before the grand competition of the 3 cities, the consequences will be at your own risk. Xie Changfeng sneered and led the many armored soldiers away. After Xie Changfeng left, the entire Long family seemed to be shrouded by a layer of dark clouds. Long Tianxing and the many people of the Hall of Elders stayed in the meeting hall until sunset. All of you get out. As long as I, Long Tianxing, am alive, I will never agree to such conditions. With Long Tianxing's angry roar, the meeting came to an end. But in the next few days, there would be noise in the meeting hall every day. Long Haoyan, who had lost his support, had gathered a group of supporters again. For a time, the Long family was completely divided because of Xie Changfeng's words. On one side, there were many elders led by the second elder and some of the younger generation who believed that Long Chun must not be handed over. Otherwise, the Long family would be annexed by the Li family one day. On the other side, there was a group of people led by Long Haoyan. This group of people believed that the identity of Li Yuanwu from the Li family had already exceeded the expectations of all the families in Iron Mountain City. The Li family would definitely become the overlord of Iron Mountain City. If handing over Long Chun could appease the anger of the Li family, why not? Of course, most of the people who stood behind Long Tianxing had seen the scene of Long Chun killing the first elder. In their hearts, Long Chun was no longer the trash of the past. In the cultivation room, Long Chun looked at the empty burning blood pill bottle in his hand and let out a sigh of relief. He said to himself, I was only a little bit away from stepping into the spiritual martial realm. The next 2 realm-breaking pills are at least enough for me to step into the spiritual martial realm. Long Chun casually punched the strength measuring stone pillar. The entire strength measuring stone pillar was directly shattered. Mortal Martial Realm Level 12, 24 Martial Veins, a single punch of 2,400 gene, comparable to the Spiritual Martial Realm Level 2, the strength of 2 dragon elephants. Long Chun laughed. In just a dozen days, he had stepped into the Mortal Martial Realm Level 12 from the Mortal Martial Realm Level 4. This cultivation speed was much faster than in his previous life. Consecutively crossing 8 levels, it could be said to be a cultivation speed that defied the natural order. Rumble. Just as Long Chun was praising the Primal Chaos Golden Codex, the stone door of the alchemy room slowly opened. Qing Xian walked in with a face full of anxiety. Young Master, you have finally finished your cultivation. Master said that as long as you wake up from your meditation, I should immediately leave the Long family with you, far away from Iron Mountain City. Qing Xian's face was filled with sadness, but he was also very anxious. Long Chen's face suddenly sank. He asked, what do you mean? Did something happen to the Li family? Chapter 25. Rushing to the door, hearing Long Xing's mocking voice from outside, Long Chen's face became gloomy. In his previous life, Long Haoyan and his son had colluded with the Li family and caused the Long family to fall into eternal damnation. Now that he was reborn, although he knew that the two were stupid and self-opinionated, he still had a trace of benevolence. After all, Long Haoyan was still his uncle and Long Xing was his cousin. But now it seems that a leopard cannot change its spots. Once there is a chance, the two will stir up trouble and bring disaster to the Long family. Long Chun, as a man of the Long family, you naturally have to go through water and tread on fire for the family. Because of you, the Long family has become enemies with the Li family. The Li family's Li Yuanwu and the eldest prince are martial brothers. If you still think of yourself as a man of the Long family, then cripple your own cultivation and follow me to the Li family to ask for forgiveness. Long Xing kept mentioning the family, as if everything was for the sake of the Long family. Long Chun heard this and frowned. He did not think that Li Yuanwu's mysterious master was the master of the Black Dragon Empire's eldest prince. If that was the case, then things were indeed a little troublesome. But in just a moment, Long Chun threw this matter to the back of his mind. The Black Dragon Empire was only one of the 9 great countries under the 5 great sections. In the entire Black Dragon Empire, the strongest person was probably only at the divine transformation or void level. It was not a very high level of cultivation. If there were enough resources, they could reach that level in less than 2 months. At that time, the entire Black Dragon Empire would not be a problem. After the Spirit Martial Realm, it was the Divine Transformation Realm where one could release their chi to kill people. Only at this level could one be considered a martial artist and not a martial artist. In his previous life, when he entered the Wanjian sect, one of the 5 great sects, he completely understood one thing. The so-called Divine Transformation Realm was only the beginning of the endless path. A man of the Long family. What a man of the Long family. I really don't know if you and your father have the blood of the Long family or the blood of the Li family. After a short moment of thought, Long Chun stared at Long Xing and shouted. Long Xing's face suddenly darkened. He took a step forward and said gloomily, "Impudent! How dare a junior like you insult my father? My father has worked hard for the Long clan all his life. If he had become the head of the Long clan, none of this would have happened. Long Xing, do you still refuse to come to your senses?" Once the Li family obtains the resources under the empire after the grand competition of the 3 cities, and you and your father make the Long family's internal affairs a mess and even sell the Long family's assets to the Li family, how long can you live even if you obtain the Long family? Long Chun stared at Long Xing and made his last attempt. He only hoped that he could turn around at the last moment, and at the same time his right hand slowly gripped onto the Cyan Ridge sword. At this moment, the sword had already been sharpened and the formation had been engraved. It was just that it had yet to drink blood. Take him down and send him to the Leaf family. You still want to frame me for colluding with the Leaf family. Now, that the Leaf family is no longer something my Long family can contend against, only by handing you over will I have a chance to live. However, Long Xing's face was gloomy, without a trace of repentance. Following Long Xing's order, the surrounding middle-aged men instantly surrounded Long Chun. These people were all from the Long family, and many of them were even new members of the Elder Hall. You refused to come to your senses. With that thought, Long Chun no longer held any hope. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and the long sword in his right hand suddenly attacked. The sword's shadow was like light, and its momentum was like the wind, whistling. Waves of sword shadows scattered in all directions like a gust of wind. Using the wind to control the sword, using the sword as the wind, in an instant, everyone felt that countless sword lights covered the sky and covered the sun. King's stage martial technique, imperial wind sword technique. He had immersed himself in this sword technique for more than 10 years in his previous life, and had long since refined it to perfection. Back then, when the Purple Mist Mountain was sealed, he had used it to defeat Li Tian, and now that he was using it again, its power was more than 100 times stronger. Poo. With a single sword strike, the 7 or 8 late-stage, ordinary martial stage middle-aged men at the front were sent flying one by one like sandbags. A line of blood appeared on their necks, but their lives were not harmed. It was clear that they still cared about their blood ties. Whoever dares to attack again, kill. Long Chun roared. His murderous intent was awe-inspiring, as if he had an inviolable will. The mortal martial late-stage, middle-aged men on the ground were all shocked and fiercely wiped off the bloodstains on their necks. If this sword was even a little bit closer, it would have killed them on the spot. Long Xing's complexion changed greatly. He did not expect that after not seeing Long Chun for more than 10 days, his strength would increase explosively again. So many mortal martial stage, 7th level, and even peak experts were not his match. But he obviously had not reached the spirit martial realm. How could he have such battle strength? Long Xing trembled with fear and did not dare to stay any longer. His entire person rolled and crawled to escape. Long Chun held his sword, looked at the people around him, coldly snorted, and unhurriedly followed behind Long Xing. He knew that today he had to get rid of the Long family's internal trouble, so that he could get rid of it once and for all. While Long Xing was escaping, he saw Long Chun following behind him. Suddenly, his hair stood on end, and cold sweat flowed down his body. He ran straight towards Long Haoyan's courtyard. "Father, save me, save me!" Long Xing roared, and directly broke through the door. Behind the door, two spirit martial stage elders suddenly stood out. The moment they saw Long Chun, they frowned. They secretly thought that Long Xing was useless. Even with so many mortal martial late-stage experts, he was still being chased by Long Chun. "Stop!" One of the newly promoted elders stared at Long Chun and shouted, "You and I are both Long family disciples. At this time, the Li family's power is not something our Long family can contend against." Nearly half of the elders agreed to the Long family's request to get lost. However, before he finished speaking, Long Chen's body was like a dragon, and the next moment, he appeared in front of him, and the sword in his hand directly attacked. So fast, the two newly promoted elders had just stepped into the spirit martial stage. Compared to Long Chun, the difference was like heaven and earth. Under the sword, the two were directly swept dozens of meters away. They vomited blood and fainted. It was unknown whether they were alive or dead. How is this possible? You are actually not afraid of the spirit martial stage. At this moment, Long Xing was completely terrified. Both of his legs were somewhat weak. Long Chun actually had the battle strength to kill the spirit martial stage. However, before he could take a few steps, he bumped into Long Haoyan's chest. Long Haoyan stared at Long Chun from afar. Not only was he not shocked or frightened, but his face was full of joy. He shouted. Long Chun offended his superiors, openly provoked the Elder Hall, trespassed here with the intention to assassinate, kill him on the spot. Following Long Haoyan's shout, he actually personally rushed out and directly arrived in front of Long Chun. His eyes were full of ridicule and ridicule. Everyone around shook their heads. Long Haoyan's cultivation was at the peak of the third level of the spirit martial stage. The strength of a single punch was close to 3,000 or 4,000 pounds. In the entire Long family, perhaps only Long Tianxing and 2 or 3 other people could suppress him. Now, Long Chen's idiotic rush was simply suicidal. Chapter 26. Eliminating internal trouble. Yuan Wu's words had caused the Long clan to fall apart. When Long Tianxing heard that Long Chun had been captured by Long Haoyan's men after coming out of seclusion, he was furious. When he heard that Long Chun had barged into Long Haoyan's residence alone with a sword, he became even more anxious. Long Tianxing led a group of elders to rescue Long Chun. However, the more they went, the more frightened they became. The peak of the mortal martial realm and the spirit martial realm were all defeated in one strike. The traces of battle were clean and neat. The Long family disciples who woke up were shocked by Long Chen's strength. When they got close to Long Haoyan's house, they heard Long Haoyan shout. Suddenly, they knew something was wrong and rushed in. However, the next scene made them stunned. Turning cloud palm, Long Haoyan saw that Long Tianxing and the others had arrived. Not only did he not stop, he even sped up. Both of his feet suddenly stepped on the ground, and the ground sank half an inch. His whole body rushed towards Long Chun. Both of his palms were like clouds falling towards Long Chun. There were bursts of explosions in the air. If one looked carefully, they would see that his palms were covered with black iron gloves. You only have this little strength. However, Long Chun did not retreat in the slightest under such a terrifying attack. He did not even use the Imperial Wind Sword technique. Instead, he stabbed out with his sword. "You're courting death." When Long Haoyan saw this scene, he suddenly felt that Long Chun was an idiot. With his cultivation of the third level of the spirit martial realm, he had a strength of 3,000 jin. Even if it was a small mountain, a hole would be hammered in it. How could a mortal martial realm cultivator resist? Even a 9th level mortal martial realm cultivator only had a strength of 900 jin. The difference was like heaven and earth. Long Tianxing and the other elders who rushed over were about to rush up. However, they were too late to stop this attack. After all, Long Chun did not have the slightest intention of dodging. But just when everyone thought that Long Chun was dead, Long Hao Ian knew that he was wrong when his glove and the Qin Gang sword clashed. He saw the spirit inscriptions on Long Chen's sword flash past. Although Long Chun was only in the mortal martial realm, the sword in his hand actually sent out a huge force like a tsunami. Kakapuchi. Long Hao Ian flew backward with blood spurting out of his mouth. He slammed heavily into the wall 10 meters behind him. The wall collapsed and buried him inside. How is this possible? He is only in the mortal martial realm. Hao Ian, Long Hao Ian, what's going on? How could this be? He was defeated in a single move. How could we hand such a genius over to the Li clan to die? The surrounding people cried out in shock. It was as if they had seen the most unbelievable thing in the world. Looking at Long Chen's shocked face, they felt as if they were dreaming. Long Chen stood in front of the crowd and looked at the faint spiritual patterns on the long sword. He thought that this layered pattern array was quite practical. During a battle, one sword strike could increase the strength of at least 800 Jin. The Green Ridge sword, which was originally of good quality, had risen by more than one level because of this formation. In a huge courtyard, even Long Tianxing couldn't help but be stunned on the spot. The dragon and elephant shadows behind him dispersed as he said in a daze, "Chen how can you be so powerful?" It wasn't just Long Tianxing. The entire Long clan was completely astonished. Long Chun was at the ordinary martial realm, but he had defeated a cultivator at the 3rd level of the spirit martial realm in one strike. This scene made everyone feel as if they were dreaming. Long Chun turned a blind eye to everyone's shocked gazes. He thought to himself that he had the body of a great emperor and cultivated the world's #1 secret technique. He had even become a sovereign in his previous life. If he still couldn't fight those above his level, then he would have lived a dog's life. "Father, let's talk about this later. For now, let's calm down the internal turmoil of the Long family. Uncle has been in cahoots with the Li family for a long time. Even Li Su's assassination attempt on me was most likely because of him." Long Chun sighed as he stared at Long Hao Ian, who was in a sorry state. Now that his cultivation had reached such a level, the people around him would definitely consider his words carefully. When his voice fell, the second elder and the others behind Long Tianxing looked at each other and stood up. He walked to the front and said, "Actually, after the incident with the great elder, I started to investigate. Long Hao Ian and Long Xing did have close contact with the Li family. However, the evidence was not enough, so I never said anything." Long Tianxing looked at Long Hao Ian and felt a chill in his heart. In fact, he might have noticed this long ago, but he didn't want to believe it. "How am I, Long Hao Ian, inferior to you? Why can't I become the patriarch of the Long family? I'm not willing. It's all because of you. Go die." At this time, Long Hao Ian suddenly burst out from the pile of rubble and rushed towards Long Chun. He actually launched a sneak attack. And, in an instant, before Long Chun could make a move, Long Tianxing suddenly waved his right hand. A long spear like a swimming dragon pierced through Long Hao Ian's chest in an instant. Long Tianxing's eyes were filled with tears. He stared at Long Hao Ian and said bitterly, "Big brother, even if you made 1,000 mistakes, I can forgive you. However, you shouldn't have colluded with the Li family, and you shouldn't have tried to kill Chen." Long Chen shook his head and didn't say anything. After experiencing all kinds of things in his previous life, his heart was already like a boulder. Even so, he was still calm. Long Xing, who was beside him, was already paralyzed with fear. Long Tianxing finally sighed and said in a deep voice, "Let him serve the immortals in the Long family's ancestral hall. It can be considered as atonement for his father." After speaking, Long Tianxing seemed to have lost all his strength. He waved his hand and said to the people behind him, "Now that the grand competition of the 3 cities is around the corner, you all make a plan and tell Chun'er, I want to be alone for these 2 days." Long Chen looked at his father's back and sighed inwardly. If his father didn't care too much about relationships and killed Long Hao Ian early in his previous life, perhaps so many things wouldn't have happened. However, this was what he admired the most about Long Tianxing. The second elder stared at Long Chun and murmured, "Young master, with your current cultivation, the Long family can get at least 30% of the resources distributed by the empire this time." The grand competition of the three cities was organized by the empire. The resources distributed by the five big sects were distributed to the empire and then distributed by the empire to the big cities. The resources were distributed layer by layer according to the strength of the young generation of the big families. Therefore, the grand competition of the three cities was not only related to the rise of the young generation of the big families, but also related to the rise and fall of the big families. The purpose of the five big sects was to cultivate the young generation. After the grand competition of the three cities, the top three would have the opportunity to participate in the competition for the quota of the Path of Immortality, which was held once every 2 years. At that time, countless geniuses of the big countries under the five big sects would gather. The so-called Path of Immortality was a grand event held by the five big sects together. Many countries under the five big sects would gather together, and the five big sects would send envoys to select disciples on the path of immortality. Chapter 27. Tournament of the Three Cities. The Tournament of the Three Cities was about to begin. This was also the day when the young experts of Iron Mountain City and the two nearby cities would compete. At this moment, all the major families were leaving for the tournament. This time, a young expert has appeared in Blood Red City. He is only 22 years old and has already reached the second level of the Spirit Martial Realm. This time, he will definitely stand out. That's not necessarily true. Have you forgotten about the woman in Blood Red City? Although she is 24 years old, she is still not 25 years old. She can still participate in the tournament. It has been a long time since the last tournament. I am afraid that she has at least reached the third level of the Spirit Martial Realm. There are also the four major families of Fierce Tiger City. These four major families always take the first place in the tournament. This time will not be an exception. Many Li family disciples were discussing. Li Kong, the head of the Li family, who was walking at the front, could not help but laugh. He said to the many elders of the Li family beside him, "In the past, it would be enough for one person to enter the top 10. However, this time, we have to compete for the top 3 positions. Head of the family is too modest. With young Master Li Yuan Wu, even if we get first place, it will not be a problem." Li Kong was quite proud. It turned out that Li Yuan Wu had already stepped into the Spirit Martial Realm a few months ago. He was at the peak of the extraordinary martial realm. This kind of cultivation was enough to sweep the younger generation of Iron Mountain City. Even in the other 2 cities, only 2 or 3 people could fight with him. Li Yuan Wu listened to the 2 and said indifferently, "This tournament of the 3 cities was originally a joke. If I did not come back this time, I would be too lazy to participate. However, now that I participate, I naturally want to get first place." Many Li family disciples were excited. If they could get first place in the tournament of the 3 cities, the resources they would get would be enough for the Li family to become one of the top 5 families in the 3 cities. At that time, the Li family would be able to control Iron Mountain City at least until the next tournament of the 3 cities. At this moment, the Long family's team was slowly coming from another street. The 2 families looked at each other and unexpectedly stopped moving forward. Last time, if the Long family did not have a 25-year-old disciple who took advantage of his age and won the 10th place, how could the Long family suppress my Li family in Iron Mountain City? So what? This time, that person cannot participate in the tournament of the 3 cities. Now, who else in the Long family can fight? I'm afraid it would be difficult to find a few 6th-level mortal martial realm martial artists in the younger generation. Isn't there still that trash young master of the Long family? Haha, it is said that he can now cultivate and has even reached the 3rd level of the mortal martial realm. When the Li clan's people saw the Long clan's disciples, they immediately mocked and ridiculed them. Long Tianxing's face turned cold. He snorted coldly, unwilling to argue with them. He led the Long family members away. Long Chun, who was standing to the side, seemed oblivious to everyone's words. He just casually glanced at Li Yuan-Wu, who was standing at the front. Under the detection of his powerful divine sense, he couldn't help but think highly of the Li family. Li Yuan-Wu's meridians were as deep as an abyss. Surprisingly, he had already opened 3 meridians. In other words, he had already broken through to the 3rd Lingqi layer. He was only around 20 years old. With this kind of cultivation level, even in the 3 big cities, he could be considered a rare genius. However, Longchen didn't take it to heart. Although he was only in the mortal martial realm, he was already comparable to the 2nd level of the spirit martial realm. Plus, he had many tricks up his sleeve, let alone the 3rd level of the spirit martial realm. He could even fight against the 4th level of the spirit martial realm. Moreover, he still had 2 breakthrough level dawn in his hands. These 2 dawn were worth nearly 10 burning blood dawn each. It was enough for him to directly break through to the 2nd level of the spirit martial realm. Longchen didn't care about the 3 cities tournament. His real goal was the immortal path in a year. Only by truly entering the 5 big sects would he be able to obtain countless resources. He would soar to the sky and quickly restore his dominator cultivation. However, just as the Long clan was about to leave, a cold shout came from behind them. Wait! The Long clan's people paused. They saw 100 black armored soldiers blocking their way. At the same time, Xiechong Feng, who was wearing silver armor, slowly walked forward. He stared at Long Tianqing and said, "It seems like you didn't take my words to heart. Do you know how much you have to pay for this trash young master?" Xiechong Feng was the son of the Jinyuan general. No matter if it was status or cultivation, he was far superior to the people of Iron Mountain City. When the Long clan's people saw him, their faces immediately turned pale. Longchen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. This guy was worthy of being from the imperial capital. He was clearly only 25 years old, but he was already at the 5th level of the spirit martial realm. It seemed that the crown prince really valued Li Yuan-Wu. Without waiting for Long Tianqing to speak, Longchen walked forward. He stared at Xiechong Feng and said, "My Long clan's matters are not for you to interfere. Don't tell me you want to represent the Empire's strength to interfere with the 3 cities tournament and even the distribution of resources by the 5 big sects? Chila." Xiechong Feng's cold face was suddenly covered with frost. He coldly snorted and was about to pull out his sword. At this time, Li Yuanwu waved his hand and said, "Chong Feng, don't be impulsive. This guy can only use his mouth. As for the Long clan, you don't need to do anything. Let's go. You're just a trash. When I first stepped into the 6th level of the mortal martial realm and left Iron Mountain City, you were only at the 1st level of the mortal martial realm. Now I'm at the spirit martial realm, and you're still a trash." Li Yuanwu's face was arrogant. His words were full of disdain. He didn't even look at him. He let the 100 black armored soldiers block the Long clan and walked in front. The Long clan actually dares to provoke the Li clan. They really don't know when to stop. That Long Chun is rumored to have practiced some unorthodox methods. But how can he be compared with Li Yuanwu? He can only rely on his mouth to talk nonsense. Let's go. In the 3 cities tournament, I think it would be good if he could enter the top 1 or 200. Many people around who were watching the show were also chattering. They secretly thought that how could Long Chun, a famous trash, be compared with Li Yuanwu? Since Li Yuanwu returned, his reputation was like the sun in the sky. Even the Lin clan and the Gu clan made concessions. Only the Long clan's relationship with him was getting worse and worse. "Father, let's go. Let's go to the tournament to camp and rest. I also want to prepare for tomorrow's tournament. As for other things, you don't have to worry about it. Leave it all to me." Longchen looked at the backs of Li Yuanwu and the other Li clan members and said in a deep voice. There was even a flash of killing intent in his eyes. Finally, it was time for the 3 cities tournament. In his previous life, after the 3 cities tournament, the Long clan walked step by step on the road to extinction. And in this life, he wanted everything to end here. After the 3 cities tournament, he wanted the Long clan to control Iron Mountain City alone and stand at the top of the many clans in the 3 cities. Chapter 28. Chapter 28. Step into the spiritual martial force. The plains to the north of the city were 10,000 meters in length and breadth. It was where Iron Mountain City, Blood Red City, and Fierce Tiger City intersected. It was also the location of the three cities competition. At this moment, many large flags have been set up in all directions on the plain. The major clans had found a place to set up camp. There was only a high platform on a mountain peak in the east, which was enough to overlook the 6 battle platforms in the center. As the sky gradually darkened, torches were lit one after another. A total of 12 families from the 3 cities had finally arrived. Today was the last day for them to adjust themselves. There were even many people who were sharpening their weapons at the last moment and swallowing medicinal pills to cultivate. At that moment, Long Chun was staying in one of the barracks of the Long family. He threw 2 breakthrough pills into his mouth. Today, he would reach the 2nd level of the Ling martial realm. Originally, with his current cultivation, he was 80 to 90% confident that he would win the grand competition of the 3 cities. However, according to the memory of his previous life, once the grand competition of the 3 cities ended and the referees left, the Li family launched a surprise attack on the Long family. Although the Li families Li Su and Li Tian were already dead, and things might change a little, there was an even more powerful Li Yuanwu. If things continued to develop like this, he would make the Li family pay an unprecedented price. At the same time, on the 100-meter grandstand, 3 members of the imperial capital were ordered to supervise the grand competition of the 3 cities. These 3 members would appear in every grand competition of the 3 cities under the Blue Dragon Empire in order to ensure the fairness of the competition. One of them was a military general, and the other was a civil general. In order to ensure that the empire did not pocket the profits, there would be a third party, the Alchemist Guild. That was to say, every grand competition of the 3 cities would be supervised by an alchemist. The vigorous old man among the 3 had a red face. He was an old general of the empire who had retired. Because his place of retirement was not far from Iron Mountain City and other mountain cities, he was appointed as the host of this place. As for the pale-faced scholar, he came from the imperial capital. He was a 7th-rank official, and his name was Zhuobu Fan. However, these 3 people, each with their own strengths, were gathered together. Their eyes were fixed on the pill in the pale-faced, beardless Elder Su's hand. After looking at it for a while, the red-faced old general asked doubtfully, "Brother Su, is it really as magical as you said? After looking at it for half a day, isn't it just a chi-gathering pill? There's even a crack on it. It's really unsightly." Although Zheng Jun had taken off his armor and returned to the fields, he was still vigorous despite his age. His words were still straightforward. The alchemist, known as Elder Su, was not angered by his words. Instead, he smiled and said, "Elder Zheng was born in the military, so it's fine as long as there are medicinal pills to eat. However, in my opinion, this medicinal pill is extremely exquisite, as if it's the work of nature." Oh, Elder Su is the representative of the Alchemist Guild in the Fire Cloud County, and he has already reached the Grandmaster realm in alchemy. Is this strange-looking pill really that rare? Compared to the old General Zheng Jun, Zhuobu Fan, the young scholar, spoke much more gently and politely. Elder Su's beardless old man shook his head and said, "This chi-gathering pill is refined from green spirit grass. There's nothing special about it. But if I'm not wrong, this chi-gathering pill only used 2 green spirit grass, and it didn't even reach 2. And its absorption effect is several times higher than that of ordinary chi-gathering pills. Even its medicinal efficacy is 2 levels higher." Elder Su's words were filled with shock and even a trace of yearning. Even though the 2 of them were not alchemists, they could still hear how amazing it was. Just the absorption effect being several times higher was incredible. In other words, a chi-gathering pill that would normally take 8 hours to absorb would now only take 2 hours. It must be known that the chi-gathering pill was the most commonly used medicinal pill for martial artists. This kind of efficiency was already terrifying. However, the 2 of them still did not understand medicinal pills. In fact, what surprised Elder Su the most was that the medicinal efficacy was 2 levels higher. The chi-gathering pill could be refined with any spiritual medicine, but while removing impurities, many medicinal properties would also be lost. Even so, there would still be many impurities in the chi-gathering pill every moment. This would cause the chi-gathering pill to be unable to be taken for a long period of time. The chi-gathering pill, the most common medicinal pill, had been refined by countless people. Its medicinal properties and impurities were almost impossible to change. But now, this rule might have been broken until a beautiful woman ran over. The woman was only 15 or 16 years old. She was otherworldly, and her eyes were like a stream on a snowy mountain. She had an indescribable aura of green spirit. She wore a somewhat serious red and black robe. The loose robe was unable to conceal her proud posture, but made her look a bit comical. But aside from Elder Sue, when the other two saw the 2 pill cauldron-like badges on the woman's chest, they immediately revealed shocked expressions. The pill cauldron badge was a badge that had been personally tested by the Alchemist Guild. Just this badge alone was enough to make the great empires treat it with great hospitality. Alchemist Sue. Could this be the daughter of the Alchemist Guild's Black Dragon Empire branch president, Lu Yi? Veteran General Zheng Jun's eyes lit up as he asked. This is the Black Dragon Empire's rare alchemy talent that only appears once in 100 years. Seeing you today, you really are a dragon among men. Alchemist Sue nodded, seemingly unwilling to speak in detail. Instead, he was quite interested in Lu Yi's words. Elder Sue, I heard that the mountain bandit stole these pills from a disciple of the Gu clan, and the disciple of the Gu clan bought them for 10 taels of silver each from the Oceanic Sky Trading Company. Hee. The woman's laughter was as clear and melodious as a bell, as if she was faintly looking forward to it. Oceanic Sky Trading Company? Aren't they also here now? They're in the outermost camp in the west. When the first round of the competition ends tomorrow, you and I will go pay them a visit. We'll definitely benefit a lot. Alchemist Sue seemed to have a rather high evaluation of the pill refiner. Oceanic Sky Trading Company? It said that the Lin clan has an alchemist from the imperial capital who has been temporarily staying in the Oceanic Sky Trading Company. It should be him. When the competition ends tomorrow, we'll go take a look together. Although Elder Sue was somewhat looking forward to it, he still agreed. In his heart, he secretly thought that the Black Dragon Empire actually had such an alchemist, and he actually didn't know about it. Bang, bang. Just as the 3 of them were about to leave, 2 faint muffled sounds came out. The old General Zheng Jun couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and look at the Long Clan's camp from afar. Elder Zheng, what's wrong? This sound is probably someone's pot and bowl being knocked over. Don't worry about it. Zhuo Bufan waved his feather fan and said casually. The old general shook his head and said rather solemnly, with my many years of experience, someone from the Long Clan has stepped into the spiritual martial force and has broken through 2 stages in a row. Breaking through 2 stages in a row, that is to say, from the ordinary martial realm directly to the 2nd level of the spiritual martial realm. Could it be that you heard wrong? Zhuo Bufan's expression was strange, as if he didn't believe it at all. Even Elder Sue shook his head slightly, as if he felt that these words were too unbelievable. Chapter 29. Don't fight to the death inside the Long family's tent. Long Chen's eyes flashed, and he let out a sigh of relief. The Primal Chaos Golden Code has a total of 36 major acupoints to open. That is to say, after reaching the profound stage of the spiritual martial realm, one can have the strength of 36 dragon elephants. That is to say, a single fist has the strength of 36,000 jin. If one can reach the profound stage of the Primal Chaos Golden Code, both internal strength and physical strength will be 4 times that of an ordinary person at the peak of the spiritual martial realm. At that time, one's physical strength will be enough to kill a spirit-severing stage expert. Long Chun muttered to himself. His words were full of shock. Every time an expert in the spiritual martial realm opens a major acupoint, they can condense a portion of internal strength. The strength of a single fist will increase by 1,000 gene. This internal strength is like a stream of spiritual power, very strange. There's also a mysterious area in my sea of consciousness. As I step into the spiritual martial realm, it has begun to loosen. It seems that I can only see it when I reach the spirit-severing stage. After his rebirth, Long Chen's biggest change was his sea of consciousness. His sea of consciousness still had the ability to dominate, but lost many of its abilities and gained a mysterious area. Just as Long Chen was about to continue exploring, there was a squeaking noise in front of the Long family's camp. "Sir, you must be mistaken. This tent belongs to the Long family's young master. He is the infamous trash of the Long family. Even if he can cultivate to the 3rd level of the mortal martial realm, it is probably his limit. How can he reach the spiritual martial realm?" When the Gu family's patriarch passed by, he coincidentally met the person sent by Elder Zheng and sneered. Hearing this, the attendant immediately lost interest and turned to leave. He reported to Elder Zheng. "That person is the Long family's young master. It is said that he is at the bottom of the younger generation in Iron Mountain City. His highest cultivation is only at the 3rd level of the mortal martial realm." Elder Zheng was suddenly surprised. His face turned red, and he said awkwardly, "Maybe someone else in his family broke through. Let's go, Elder Zheng. We still have to host the large competition tomorrow." When Long Chen walked out of the tent, Qing Xian immediately greeted him and said, "Young master, they actually called you trash. They will definitely regret it tomorrow. It's just a false reputation. The word trash has long been deeply ingrained in their hearts. How could it be so easy to get rid of it? However, from tomorrow onwards, the sky of Iron Mountain City will change." Long Chen cast his gaze towards the Li family from afar, and a chill ran through his heart. Although he was only at the 1st level of the spirit martial realm, he had opened up 2 major acupoints and could evolve the power of 2 dragon elephants. In addition, he had formed 24 martial veins in the mortal martial realm. His true fighting strength was comparable to the 4th level of the combat spirit martial realm. Even though his real strength was still a little lower than level 5 of the spiritual martial realm, with the advantage of various martial arts techniques, he was enough to sweep the Iron Mountain City's spiritual martial realm, which was not weaker than any level 6 languaging. The so-called grand competition of the 3 cities had already become a child's game and was no longer in his eyes. The next morning, as soon as the cold sunlight appeared, all the major clans had already gathered at the battle stage. War General Elder Zheng, Civil General Zhuobu Fan, and Alchemist Elder Su. The 3 hosts were also well-known figures in the Iron Mountain City and the other 2 cities. The 3 of them stood on the high platform, looking rather dignified. 12 clans, 6 battle stages. Each clan had a total of 20 participants, a total of 240 people. The rules of today's arena competition are the same. It's still an elimination system. On the first day, there will be 20 matches in each arena before noon, and 10 matches after noon. Zhuo Bufan took a step forward and said politely. In other words, 120 people would be eliminated on the first day alone in the morning, and another 60 people would be eliminated in the afternoon. The next 2 days would be the real battlefield for the strongest of the younger generation of the major clans. Seeing that the disciples of the various clans were all rubbing their fists and palms, Alchemist Elder Su walked forward with a smile and said, "For this grand competition of the 3 cities, the resources below have been written on the bulletin boards beside the battle stages. There is also the list of the major clans' battles today." As Elder Su's voice fell, everyone turned their eyes to the bulletin boards in front of the 6 battle stages in the center. A moment later, the crowd was in an uproar, because the resources this time were all medicinal pills. It should be known that under normal circumstances, there were very few medicinal pills in the 3 cities, and very few people could refine them. Therefore, even if the clans obtained the medicinal pills, they would take them directly. In this way, not only could the medicinal effects not be fully exerted, but there might also be many impurities left in the body after taking them for a long time. What? The clans with disciples in the top 10 will get 200 spirit charging pills for each place. 200 spirit charging pills are enough to give birth to a divine transformation realm expert. In other words, this competition will completely widen the gap between the various clans, and it will not change for at least the next 10 years. Look, the top 3 can all follow the referees into the imperial capital and become disciples of the Royal Academy. The first place can even be summoned by the imperial preceptor and receive a wind-chanting purple vein sword. The entire clan will be treated as a meritorious clan of the Empire for a year. Hiss! The clans below the stage gasped. Whether it was the elders or the disciples, even the eyes of the clans were bloodshot and full of excitement. The Royal Academy. That was the school for countless young nobles in the imperial capital. It had countless resources, cultivation methods, martial arts, and would even be accepted by the Empire to establish military merits. The treatment of a meritorious clan. That was 300,000 taels of silver and 50 energy-gathering pills per month for 12 consecutive months. For a moment, even Li Yuanwu's expression changed drastically. This kind of reward was far better than the previous grand competition of the 3 cities. It could be said to be heaven-defying. Even he could not help but be excited. The wind-chanting purple vein sword, the treatment of a meritorious clan, and a disciple of the Royal Academy. If I have these, I will be able to establish myself even in the imperial capital. Li Yuanwu's face was flushed with excitement. Long Chun clearly knew that this year's grand competition of the 3 cities was to unify the major cities of the Black Dragon Empire. Every 3 cities would have a leader, and the meritorious clans would control them to strengthen the Empire's control. In his previous life, it was precisely because of this that the Li clan hastened the destruction of the Long clan. In this way, as long as I get first place, the Long clan will become the overlord of the 3 cities and will have no worries for at least 20 years. Long Chen muttered to himself. At the same time, the surrounding people could not help but step onto the stage according to the names and numbers on the bulletin board. First stage, Iron Mountain Cities Li Yun versus Blood Red Cities Zhou Tian. Second stage, Iron Mountain Cities Gu Jun versus Iron Mountain Cities Long Bu. Third stage, Blood Red Cities Lin Cheng versus Blood Red Cities Wei Go. Fourth stage, Fierce Tiger Cities Sun Wan versus Fierce Tiger Cities Chung Xin. There were 6 stages, and each of the 12 clans would send out 1 person in the first round. Every round, 6 people would be eliminated. After 20 rounds, 120 people would be eliminated. It could be said to be cruel. The competition had not yet started, but there were endless discussions below the stage. They were already guessing the outcome. Chapter 30. Chapter 30 kneeled down and begged for mercy. Long Bu was rather puzzled by Long Chen's words, but he still nodded in agreement. The Long family kept everything about Long Chen a secret. Although the outside world still didn't know about Long Chen's strength, the younger generation of the Long family had long since followed Long Chen's lead and revered him. After Long Bu went on stage, Gu Jun from the Gu family suddenly sneered and said in a deep voice, "I didn't expect that there would be someone from the Long family who can go on stage. However, you, a guy who just stepped into the 4th level of the mortal martial realm, want to fight with me? Cut the crap, let's fight." Although Long Bu shouted this, he thought of Long Chen's words and kept a lookout. When Gu Jun saw that it was someone from the Long family, his eyes were filled with murderous intent. His body swayed, and the long sword in his hand turned into streaks of cold radiance that slashed towards Long Bu. The sound of air being sliced apart could be heard. Long Bu was not slow, and he blocked with his sword. Poochie! However, he immediately fell to the ground. Gu Jun's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He was about to slash his saber at Gu Jun's head. But before he could finish, he heard Long Bu shout, "I admit defeat." Before Gu Jun could make a second move, he heard Long Bu admitting defeat. He could only snort coldly and say, "The Long clan is indeed weak. You were just lucky in the grand competition of the 3 cities." Long Bu was covered in cold sweat. He glanced at Long Chun gratefully. The grand competition of the 3 cities did not restrict life and death. As long as the other side did not admit defeat, they could continue to fight. If not for Long Chen's warning, he would have died in Gu Jun. I didn't expect Gu Jun to have reached the peak of the 4th level of the mortal martial realm. Furthermore, he is so ruthless and wants to kill Long Bu before he can react. Long Tianqing frowned and said in a deep voice. Long Chen nodded and murmured, I'm afraid it's not just the Gu family. The Li family will definitely do the same. The two families obviously want to kill as many of our Long family's core disciples as possible in the grand competition of the 3 cities. Following Long Bu's admission of defeat, the results of the other battle stages were also announced. Apart from the Long clan who lost to the Gu clan from the same city, all the other battle stages of the Iron Mountain City's clan disciples actually ended in defeat. However, no one was surprised. After all, Iron Mountain City had always ranked last in the 3 cities competition. They were far inferior to Blood Red City and Fierce Tiger City. Most of the people who went up on stage in the first round were nameless people, so the crowd was not interested. They focused all their attention on the information on the bulletin board, wanting to see who would go up on stage in the second round. Wei Song is 22 years old, and he's at the 2nd level of the Spirit Martial Realm. He's one of the top 3 seeded contestants. Why am I so unlucky to have to face him? Blood Red Cities by Linger. Heavens! She had reached the Spirit Martial Realm in the last grand competition of the 3 cities. Now a year has passed. I'd better admit defeat. Haha, I'm lucky. I'm so lucky. My opponent is actually that trash from the Long family. Long Chen's name was also in the 2nd round. He belonged to the 3rd battle stage. His opponent was a Blood Red City's Wei clan disciple who was at the 4th level of the mortal martial realm. As Long Chen stepped onto the 3rd battle stage, the other battle stages had already finished. The disciples who encountered Wei Song, Bai Linger, and Lin Feiyu all admitted defeat. They could only secretly curse their bad luck for encountering them on the first day. It's the Long family's young master. Among the major clans, only the Iron Mountain City's Long family's young master is participating in the 3 cities competition for the first time. I didn't expect Wei Qing's luck to be so good. Blood Red City's Wei Song casually glanced at Long Chen as he walked down the stage. It's that trash from the Long family. The Long family is one of the 4 major clans of Iron Mountain City, but they actually have such a trash young master. Everyone in the 3 cities knows about this. A Wei clan disciple also disdainfully said, Cousin Wei Qing is very respectful to the boss. If he is lucky enough to enter the top 100, he will definitely reward him. Not only did the Wei clan's people look down on Long Chen, but even the other clans were secretly thinking that this Wei clan's disciple was extremely lucky. After all, Long Chen's reputation as a trash was well known. Only Lin Feiyu, who walked down from the 2nd battle stage, shook his head and laughed. Previously, Long Chen killed Li Su with a single punch in the Sea Sky Trading Company. That kind of strength wasn't something that a person called trash could achieve. Even Lin Feiyu was somewhat afraid of Long Chen. On the battle stage, the Wei clan disciple was extremely excited. He stared at Long Chen and said, I originally thought that I wouldn't be able to pass the first round. I didn't expect to meet you. I'm really lucky. Are you going to admit defeat, or let me beat you until you kneel down and beg for mercy? The top 100 of the 3 cities competition would all receive some rewards. In other words, as long as he defeated Long Chen in the first round, he would be able to receive a few pills if he was lucky enough to be ranked behind in the second round. Long Chen stared at this person and said with a playful smile, "It's better if you kneel down and beg for mercy. Then don't blame me for being merciless." As the Wei clan disciple sneered, he suddenly pounced towards Long Chen. As his fists intertwined, his cultivation of the 4th level of the mortal martial realm was revealed without a doubt. Wei clan's meteor punch. I think Long Chen won't even have the strength to admit defeat after this punch. Li clan's patriarch Li Kong, who was not far from Long Tianqing, sneered. Long Tianqing didn't even look at him and said indifferently, "Be careful not to cut your tongue." Just as Long Tianqing's voice fell, the Wei clan disciple on the stage flew out. His mouth was full of blood, his teeth were scattered, and a huge shoe print was particularly clear on his face. Are you going to kneel down and beg for mercy, or do you want me to beat you until you beg for mercy? Long Chun slowly walked forward and said indifferently. The Wei clan disciple's eyes were dull, as if he couldn't believe that he had just been kicked in the face by Long Chun. He didn't even see it clearly. Then, as if he was unwilling to give up, he rushed out again. Boom! Another shoe print appeared on his face, and his whole body was heavily trampled on the ground. Woo-woo! At this moment, he wanted to admit defeat, but he couldn't speak. His mouth was full of blood. The surrounding people who were originally ridiculing Long Chun suddenly felt as if a fishbone was stuck in their throats. They stared strangely at the scene on the stage. Wei Song's face was gloomy, and he said to Long Chun in a deep voice, "Your Excellency, don't be too greedy." Greedy? Kneeling on the ground and begging for mercy was what he said himself. Long Chun didn't comment. The Wei clan disciple was beaten dizzy by Long Chun. At this moment, how could he not understand that he wasn't lucky, but kicked an iron plate? He quickly knelt on the ground and cowed out. At this moment, he couldn't make a sound. Even if Long Chun killed him, it would be in vain. Seeing this person begging for mercy, Long Chun kicked him off the stage, but didn't take his life. Chapter 31. Strange Qi, gathering pill in the blink of an eye. Long Chun had defeated the Wei family's 4th-level mortal martial realm Wei Qing. I didn't expect that the Long family's trash could actually defeat the 4th-level mortal martial realm Wei Qing. Wei Qing's strength was at the bottom of the tournament. If it weren't for Wei Song, he probably wouldn't have had the chance to participate. Losing is nothing, but offending Wei Song is not a wise thing to do. That Long Chun is at most at the peak of the 4th level of the mortal martial realm. I don't know how many spirit herbs he used to achieve this. He definitely won't be able to last through the next round. While everyone was discussing, Wei Song left the Wei family's camp and slowly walked towards Long Chun. He said condescendingly, You better pray you don't meet me in the next round. Otherwise, you won't have the chance to surrender. After he finished speaking, Wei Song directly left. When he passed by Li Yuanwu, he couldn't help but slightly frown. No one knew what he was thinking. Li Yuanwu closed his eyes from beginning to end. It was as if he didn't put anyone in his eyes. Next, the 3rd round of the tournament began. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, it was noon. 20 rounds of tournament, 6 stages. In just one morning, many of the younger generation's experts stood out. There were even many who won without fighting. Among them, Li Yuanwu was the leader. He killed a 6th-level mortal martial realm expert with a single punch. Everyone trembled in fear. Then came Wei Song, the Bai family's Bai Ling, and the other strong experts of the younger generation. They were already in their 20s and were almost certain to reach the top 10 of this tournament. The first round is over. Out of the remaining 120 people, 8 have died. Hearing this news, the Long family's faces were like dark clouds. Long Chun couldn't help but slightly frown. Among the 8 people, 3 of them were Long family disciples. One of them died at the hands of a 24-year-old 9th-level mortal martial realm expert from the Li family. The other 2 died at the hands of the Wei family's Wei Song. Long Chun had warned the 3 of them before they stepped onto the stage. Unfortunately, they were still unwilling to admit defeat. Who would have thought that the 2 of them would directly kill them, not giving them a chance to surrender? Especially the last Long family youth. He had immediately chosen to surrender, but was still killed by Wei Song's fist. All of a sudden, the various large clans looked at the Long clan in amusement. Very soon, the Long clan became the target of public criticism. They were targeted by the Li clan, Gu clan, and Wei clan. After 4 hours of rest, there would be another round of battles in the afternoon. In these 4 hours, the younger generation of the Long family were all trembling in fear. After all, due to the uneven distribution of resources in the Purple Mist Mountain Seal, and the fact that the Long family's younger generation experts were already over 25 years old and could not participate in the competition, the younger generation of the Long family was not as good as the other 3 families. If the Wei clan, Gu clan, and Li clan all attacked at the same time, there would definitely be many casualties. All of a sudden, everyone in the Long family was in a state of panic. At this moment, Long Chen walked to Long Tianxing's side and whispered into his ear, "Father, tell all of the Long family's disciples to forfeit tomorrow." "What?" Long Tianxing cried out involuntarily. "Chen, do you know what it means to forfeit? If they all forfeit, then at least someone has to enter the top 3 to protect the Long family's position." Long Tianxing and the purple mist mountain seal had already made the Long family fall behind step by step. If the Long family also forfeited in the 3 cities competition, then the Long family would be removed from the Iron Mountain City's 4 great clans in less than 2 years. Long Chen said in a deep voice, "I have the confidence to win first place in the 3 cities competition." Dang dang. When Long Tianxing heard Long Chen's words, he could not help but be shocked. He took half a step back and immediately shook his head with a wry smile. "Chen, although your battle strength is not weak and you can definitely enter the top 10, it will be extremely difficult to win first place. After all, you are only 15 years old." Although Long Tianxing knew that Long Chen's strength was tyrannical and could defeat Long Haoyan, who was at the 4th level of the spiritual martial realm, there were many experts of the younger generation in front of him who had reached the 3rd level of the spiritual martial realm or even higher. They were all 23 or 24 years old. Their martial skills and the use of inner strength in the spiritual martial realm were not comparable to Long Chen. "Father, do you trust me?" Long Chen's right hand suddenly fell on Long Tianxing's arm, and then a vast qi came out. "If I don't care about anything, my cultivation right now is enough to destroy the Li family." Long Chen's words made Long Tianxing's body tremble, especially the power coming from his arm. Such a terrifying qi was not weaker than him. How could he be so strong? A few days ago, he had not broken through to the mortal martial realm, but now his strength was comparable to the 4th or 5th level of the spiritual martial realm. "All right, I'll go crazy with you." Long Chen nodded with a smile after hearing Long Tianxing's reply. Just as he was about to turn around, he heard a familiar voice from afar. "Long time no see." It turned out that Lin Feiyu and Yanghong were accompanying alchemist Lu from afar. Seeing them clearly, Long Chen cupped his fist and smiled. "Last time, I left in a hurry and did not apologize to Senior Ouyang. I used the alchemy room for nothing and even broke a furnace." Speaking of this, Yanghong suddenly pretended to be angry and said, "You brat, it's fine if you just blindly made pills, but you also broke my furnace. For you, I lost a month's salary." Hearing this, Long Chen smiled helplessly but did not explain. The few of them chatted for a while and then walked towards Alchemist Su and the other 2 judges. Lin Feiyu even turned around and shouted at Long Chen with a fighting spirit, "If I meet you on the fighting stage, I will not show any mercy." Long Chen liked Lin Feiyu's character and secretly thought that if he met him on the fighting stage, there was no harm in giving him some pointers on the other side. The elders of the Long family were in an uproar. Long Tianxing was stubborn and actually made all the disciples of the Long family give up on the competition, leaving only Long Chen. Countless elders of the Long family sighed, but there was nothing they could say. They only thought that this grand competition of the 3 cities was the beginning of the Long family's decline. Lin Feiyu and the other 2 came to the stands. After seeing Alchemist Su, Elder Zheng, and the other 2, they immediately showed a respectful expression. These 3 people's identities were not ordinary. Even in the imperial capital, they were not low. "I didn't expect our alchemist guild to have such a rare talent like Alchemist Lu. Seeing you today, you really can't judge a book by its cover." Elder Su looked at Alchemist Lu with surprise. Alchemist Lu's face was full of confusion, and he quickly returned the greeting. Although he was a spirit-level alchemist, compared to Elder Su in front of him, he was still too far away. Yanghong smiled and said, "Alchemist Lu often mentioned you 2 elders to me. He said many times that since he came to Iron Mountain City, he should pay you 2 a visit, so that this trip was not in vain." You people, you just like to be polite and long-winded. Stop wasting time. Let me ask you, did you sell some chi gathering pills at the Sea Sky Trading Company a while ago?" Elder Zheng, who was on the side, was somewhat impatient, and his fiery temper was obvious. Behind the two of them, Lu Yi, who was wearing a loose robe, also looked at Alchemist Lu with anticipation on her beautiful face. Chapter 32. The entire clan withdraws. Yanghong didn't expect Alchemist Lu to have such influence. Of the three people in front of him, one was the representative of the Alchemist Association branch, and the other was a retired veteran. However, what shocked him the most was Lu Yi behind them. Such a young spirit rank alchemist, he could only be that once-in-a-century alchemist. I did sell some chi gathering pills to the Oceanic Sky Trading Company, but they were all small things that couldn't catch Alchemist Su's eye, Alchemist Lu said modestly. Even a mortal rank alchemist could easily refine chi gathering pills, and their effects were basically the same. Why did the four of them care so much about it? Their words made Alchemist Lu quite confused. Before Alchemist Su could speak, Lu Yi blinked her big bright eyes and walked over. She pulled on Alchemist Lu's sleeve and said, "Uncle Lu, why don't you teach me how to refine pills? I want those chi gathering pills." Alchemist Lu looked at the pill cauldron badge on Lu Yi's chest and couldn't help but frown. He smiled bitterly and said, "How could this old man be qualified to be your teacher? This must be the president's daughter, the once-in-a-century alchemy fanatic, right?" Father said before, the one who has reached the top is the teacher. Uncle Lu's chi gathering pill can't be found a second person in the entire Azure Dragon Empire who can refine it. Please don't be stingy with your guidance. Lu Yi's beautiful face made people unable to refuse. However, Alchemist Lu was even more confused. His chi gathering pills were so powerful and unique. However, even if he had twice the courage, he wouldn't dare to accept Lu Yi as his teacher. Not to mention that Lu Yi was the daughter of the Alchemist Association's president. Just the fact that she was a spirit rank alchemist at the age of 15 was something he couldn't ignore. Comparisons were odious. He was almost 60 years old before he became a spirit rank alchemist. After thinking about it, Alchemist Lu couldn't help but ask, "Are you looking for the wrong person? My chi gathering pills are really nothing special." As he spoke, he waved his hand, and a light blue chi gathering pill appeared in his hand. Alchemist Su hurriedly walked forward, but immediately frowned and said, "It really isn't this pill. Does Oceanic Sky Trading Company have any spirit rank alchemists? Or Grandmaster rank alchemists?" Ouyang Hong smiled bitterly and said, "Not to mention Grandmaster level alchemists, there's only one spirit level alchemist, Alchemist Lu." Ouyang Hong couldn't help but secretly think that this wasn't the imperial capital. Where did Grandmaster alchemists come from? Even if there was one, they wouldn't be able to afford it. Didn't this medicinal pill come from your Ocean Sky auction house? Elder Su asked doubtfully. As he spoke, he took out a black pill that looked like a charcoal ball. There was a crack on it, and it looked as if it would split open at any moment. Just as he took out the pill, Ouyang Hong and Alchemist Lu both cried out in shock. This time, it was Alchemist Su and the others' turn to be puzzled. He asked, "What? You two know who refined this medicinal pill? Quick, bring me to him. Yi wants to take him as her master and refine this cracked pill." Although Lu Yi was only 15 years old, her voluptuous figure was probably not inferior to that of an adult woman. Her loose robe and pure intelligence made her seem energetic. "Were you really talking about this medicinal pill just now?" Ouyang Hong couldn't help but confirm again. "Wasn't this medicinal pill created by Long Chen's cauldron explosion? He sold it at a super low price of 10 taels of silver per pill. Was this medicinal pill really as incredible as Alchemist Su said? But how old was Long Chen? He was only 15 years old. Could it be that Iron Mountain City had produced another rare pill Dao talent that was hard to come by in 100 years? Seeing Elder Su nod, Alchemist Lu and Ouyang Hong looked at each other and smiled bitterly. That person is not far from the spectator stands. He is the young master of the Long family, Plop. Lin Feiyu, who was standing at the side, almost fell off the spectator stands. They were talking about some Grandmaster-level alchemist, But it turned out that they were looking for Long Chun, the young master of the Long family. Isn't he a well-known trash in Iron Mountain City? At this time, the red-faced elder Zheng asked in confusion. Yesterday, he felt that the person who broke through repeatedly was the young master of the Long family. Now, it seemed that he might not have heard wrongly. Everyone, please calm down. Maybe he didn't refine this medicinal pill, but he got it from someone else. The second round of the competition is about to begin. If you still have questions, we will call him over after the competition is over. Joie Buffon, who had been silent all this time, reminded them. Everyone nodded. Seeing that the competition was about to begin, Lin Feiyu took the lead to cup his fists and walk down the spectator stands. Then, Alchemist Liu and Ouyang Hong also walked down the spectator stands with strange expressions. It is said that the young master of the Long family is only 15 or 16 years old. I'm afraid there is a mistake. How can he refine such a medicinal pill at such a young age, and in a place like Iron Mountain City? Joie Buffon glanced at the Long family's camp from afar. I don't like the words of scholars like you. Look at E. She is just a 15-year-old spirit-level alchemist. Elder Zheng snorted. Joie Buffon was speechless for a moment. After a small interlude, the second round of the competition began. But soon, an elder of the Long family walked up the stage respectfully and said, "Seniors, my Long family wants to withdraw from this grand competition of the 3 cities, leaving only one disciple to participate." Withdraw from the grand competition of the 3 cities? The 3 of them were stunned. The grand competition of the 3 cities was related to the rise and fall of the major families, as well as their resources and status. They had never heard of a family withdrawing from the grand competition of the 3 cities. Yes, my Long family is willing to withdraw from the grand competition of the 3 cities, leaving only young Master Long Chun. The elder's face was extremely ugly, as if he had made a great decision. Although the 3 of them were curious, they still nodded. However, they also had a lot of interest in this young master of the Long family. Was that medicinal pill refined by the young master of the Long family, who was called Trash? Was he really another genius in alchemy? Was it true that he broke through 2 spiritual martial realms yesterday? Today, the Long family had all withdrawn, so why was he left alone? The elder of the Long family left, and the 3 of them discussed for a while. Joie Buffon walked up to them and announced loudly, "The Long family has all withdrawn from the grand competition of the 3 cities, leaving only one person to participate. Therefore, all the opponents on the list who are disciples of the Long family can directly advance to the next round and compete tomorrow." What? The Long family withdrew from the grand competition of the 3 cities. Is he crazy? What do you mean crazy? They have no other choice. If they continue to fight, I'm afraid that at least 10 of the top 20 people in the younger generation of the Long family will die. At that time, what's the use of the Long family's resources? That's right. Li Yuanwu of the Li family, Wei Song of the Wei family, and Gu Tianhua of the Gu family. These 3 people's cultivations are all in the spiritual martial realm. If they meet the people of the Long family, they won't even have a chance to fight. I think 2 more of them will die in the second round alone. Why did Long Chen stay? Even if he defeated Wei Qing, how could he be a match for these people? Isn't he courting death? Not to mention these people, I'm afraid he can't even pass the second round. These people are fighting for the top 10, or even the top 3. Chapter 33. Meet 1. Kill one afternoon. The scorching sun hung high in the sky. The glaring sunlight made everyone restless, and when Long Chun stepped onto the stage, the atmosphere became even more restless. Hissing sounds could be heard from all around. His opponent was actually a 7th-level mortal martial realm disciple of the Li family. Li Kuei was already at the 5th level of the mortal martial realm during the upper stage tournament, and now he has reached the 6th level of the mortal martial realm. This time, he will definitely advance to the top 60. After this tournament of the 3 cities, Li Kuei will reach the age of 25. After that, he will not be able to participate in the tournament again, but this time his luck is not bad. He actually met Long Chun. I don't know what the Long family is thinking, leaving Long Chen alone. Although he is not a waste now, at most he is at the 4th or 5th level of the mortal martial realm. How can he compete with the major families? I'm afraid Li Kuei is enough to kill him. The surrounding people were discussing animatedly, and the Li family disciples were sneering. Li Yuanwu looked at Long Chun from afar, narrowing his eyes, as if he did not put Long Chun in his eyes. Kill him. After a moment, Li Yuanwu stared at Li Kuei and said. The surrounding people suddenly shook their heads. The Li family was really targeting the Long family. No matter what, Long Chun was still the young master of the Long family, but Li Yuanwu did not hesitate to kill Li Kuei. The Li family head Li Kong looked at Long Chun from afar. His eyes were full of anger. Today, Long Chen's cultivation was enough to kill Li Tian in the training mountain range, and Li Su had also died trying to assassinate him. Now, he wished he could kill everyone in the Long family to accompany him in death. On the stage, Li Kuei stared at Long Chun and grinned. I didn't expect the young master of the Long family to die in my hands. I will take your life in 3 moves. Li Kuei's voice fell, and a long saber appeared in his right hand. Suddenly, the saber shadow did not leave a single gap. He was afraid that Long Chun would surrender and escape, so his speed was extremely fast and did not give him a chance to breathe. The snake's shadow changed. Li Kuei was using the Li family's mortal tier 7th grade saber art. His saber art was wide open, but in reality, it was very strange. The saber shadows were like venomous snakes that hung upside down and hissed. This kind of saber technique was equivalent to the 7th level of the mortal martial realm. Apart from a younger generation of the major clans who were about to reach the age of 20 and above, most likely people like Long Chun would only be killed in a second. Wei Tsang shook his head and said, "It's a pity that the Li family beat us to it. Otherwise, I would definitely make this person beg for death. No matter what, he wouldn't be able to utter the word surrender." Behind Wei Tsang, Wei Qing's face was swollen. He glared at Long Chun with eyes full of resentment and said fiercely, "Dying like this is too easy for him." He actually dodged it. However, in the next moment, everyone cried out in surprise. Long Chun actually did not move in the slightest under the attack. He did not care about the shadow of the blade, but it did not hurt him at all. Is this considered a blade technique? Long Chun asked. Li Kuei only felt a burning sensation on his face, and his expression immediately became gloomy. He roared again, and his power was even stronger than before. Snake Shadow Encirclement. This time, he actually chopped more than 10 times. Long Chen's body was instantly surrounded by a strange shadow of a blade. The surrounding people cried out in surprise. This kind of saber technique was practiced to the Deshang level. With this kind of saber technique, it was enough to contend with a 7th level of the mortal martial realm. Everyone secretly thought that Long Chun was definitely going to die this time. There was no other thought. They secretly thought that if he had directly admitted defeat after dodging the first attack, he might have been able to save his life. What? However, this time, it was still greeted with a cry of surprise. Long Chen's body was like a rainbow, and in a few breaths' time, his steps were like a phantom. It was as if he was walking through 10,000 flowers without being touched by a single leaf. At this moment, Li Kuei's eyes were wide open. He only felt that his heart was suffocating with blood. His whole body strength was unexpectedly unable to be used. His attack did not even touch the corner of Long Chen's clothes. 3 moves have passed. Now it's my turn. Long Chen's pondering smile swept over. His right hand was like a blade, and he chopped down in a straight line. Bursts of wind were brought up, and the faint sound of wind and thunder could be heard. His palm chopped down, but it made Li Kuei's whole body freeze on the spot. He felt that this move had an indomitable and overbearing aura, which made his mind tremble. He was originally about to raise his long saber horizontally, but he abruptly avoided it. Chila! Blood splattered everywhere, and a head with a face full of panic flew out. Under that blade, he even lost the courage to raise his saber. Long Chen's body was like a swan goose as he retreated. There was not a single drop of blood on him, and he was extremely confident and at ease. The head, dripping with blood, as if on purpose, directly fell into the crowd of the Li family. Many young disciples were scared out of their wits, and their complexions were deathly pale. How is this possible? The waist young master of the Long family actually beheaded Li Kuei, who was at the 6th level of the mortal martial realm. With a single hand chop, he used the strength of his body to chop off the head. This Long Chen's understanding of saber techniques is actually so deep. Waist? This is really the biggest joke in Iron Mountain City. This person is only about 16 years old, but he actually has the strength to behead a 6th level of the mortal martial realm. I'm afraid that he has at least reached the 7th level of the mortal martial realm. Even in Iron Mountain City, he is enough to rank in the top 5. Waves of exclamations came from the various large families. Long Chen's hand chop had beheaded a 6th level of the mortal martial realm. Whether it was speed or strength, it was vividly displayed. Only the Li family's head, Li Kang's complexion, was as green as a ghost's face. His whole body's spirit martial realm aura could not help but fluctuate. The surrounding Li family disciples' complexions were as black as the bottom of a pot. Li Kuei, who was at the 6th level of the mortal martial realm, had actually died. This was the first person from the Li family to die on the fighting stage. Moreover, he died at the hands of the Long family's waist young master. This was simply a ruthless slap to the faces of the major families of the 3 cities. Li Yuanwu looked at the head on the ground not far away. His eyes were unprecedentedly cold. Soon after, he stared at Long Chen on the fighting stage and said, "Good, very good. This is perhaps even more interesting. Killing a waist is really meaningless." Long Chen had not yet left the fighting stage. After hearing Li Yuanwu's words, he sneered and suddenly shouted, "Today, I will kill every member of the Li family, Wei family, and Gu family that I see." Hiss! Long Chen's words were like a heavy bomb being dropped in the crowd. It caused an uproar. He actually dared to provoke the 3 major families by himself. Wei Tsong, Li Yuanwu, and Gu Tianhua, the 3 spirit martial realm martial artists who had the strength to fight for the top 3 positions, all had gloomy expressions. They secretly thought that Long Chen was ignorant. Even though he had some strength, age was not enough to make up for it. In their eyes, Long Chen was still not a match for them. His words were just arrogant words. On the spectator stand, Elder Zheng and the other 2 referees stared at Long Chen in amazement. Elder Zheng, in particular, praised Long Chen's stunning saber strike. Chapter 34. Chapter 34. Li Yuanwu, the terrible Iron Mountain City's Li clan, Gu clan, and Blood Red City's Wei clan. These 3 great clans all viewed Long Chen as a thorn in their flesh. In the stands, Zhuo Bufon's comments about Long Chen made Elder Zheng furious. He shouted, "I find this guy very pleasing to the eye. Regardless of whether he will win or not, I like his arrogant temperament very much." Zhuo Bufon shook his head and smiled bitterly. He was helpless against this old general who was born in the army. However, he knew that although the old general in front of him had retired, his influence in the capital was not something that a scholar like him could compare with. Long Chen slowly walked down from the battle platform. Li Yuanwu and the other young generation of the 3 clans were all filled with murderous intent. Long Chen's words were undoubtedly a challenge to them in front of everyone. Li Feng wins. White Fox wins. Because of the Long clan's withdrawal, the second round was a lot faster. Very quickly, Li Yuanwu stepped onto the fighting stage. This time, his opponent was a seeded contestant from the Sun clan of the Fierce Tiger City. His strength was at the peak of the 2nd level of the spirit martial realm. As soon as the 2 people got on the stage, they caused a commotion. This was the first time today that 2 strong cultivators of the spirit martial realm met. With their strength, they were basically able to reach the top 10. But now that they met in the 2nd round, one of them had to be eliminated. Sun Wu's face gradually darkened as he stared at Li Yuanwu, who was slowly making his way onto the stage. He had vaguely heard of Li Yuanwu's name in the past few days. To be able to become the apprentice brother of the Empire's first prince, one could see that Li Yuanwu possessed extraordinary talent and strength. However, he was truly unwilling to admit defeat just like that. Sun Wu is 23 years old. He got into the top 10 in the last major competition and has the cultivation of the spiritual martial realm. Now he is fighting with Li Yuanwu, and there will be a wonderful battle. Both of them defeated their opponents with a single strike in the previous round. Their strength is enough to rank them in the top 10 among the over 200 participants. Everyone was discussing animatedly. They were looking forward to the battle between the two of them. Long Chun, who was standing outside the arena, couldn't help but take a few glances. On the battle stage, Li Yuanwu had just arrived in front of Sun Wu when he exuded a soul-stirring aura, which made Sun Wu somewhat apprehensive. After hesitating for a moment, Sun Wu said in a deep voice, "How about we stop when it's time?" Li Yuanwu stared at Sun Wu and said indifferently, "Admit defeat or die." Li Yuanwu's words were very indifferent, as if he didn't put Sun Wu in his eyes at all. His words were full of disdain. Sun Wu's face immediately drooped when he heard this. He snorted coldly and said, "Then I want to see just how much capital you, the Li family's eldest young master, have to be arrogant." Flaming Fire Claw. As Sun Wu roared, a weapon that looked like the sharp claws of a demonic beast appeared in his hands. When he waved it, flames shot out. The surrounding air was distorted, and air explosions continued. The temperature was not low. If this claw came into contact with him, it would probably burn his skin and flesh. However, Li Yuanwu sneered, "Petty tricks." His right hand clenched into a fist and directly blasted out. Instantly, boundless waves of air moved along with it, turning into a wall of fist wind that attacked. With this one move, Sun Wu was actually forced to retreat. Sun Wu's expression changed drastically, and his hands trembled uncontrollably. At this moment, he already regretted fighting with Li Yuanwu. With this punch, the winner was obvious. However, he knew that if he was distracted and gave up now, he was afraid that even if he admitted defeat, he would be directly killed. Explode. He gritted his teeth, and a trace of madness flashed across his face. The crimson claws suddenly shot out and collided with each other in the air. The sky was filled with fire, and there was an explosion. I admit defeat. Taking advantage of this time, he actually wanted to open his mouth and admit defeat. However, just as he finished speaking, a palm reached out from the exploding flames and directly pierced through his chest. Sun Wu looked at the palm in front of him unwillingly and fell to the ground. With 2 moves, he killed an expert at the 2nd level of the spiritual martial realm. At this moment, everyone looked at Li Yuanwu with only awe. They secretly thought that the younger generation of the Li family in Iron Mountain City had an amazing talent. That's the 7th level of the spiritual martial technique, Shrinking Step, and the 9th level of the spiritual martial technique, Storm 7 Kill Fists. Sun Wu was actually directly crushed like this. Even the other seeded contestants absolutely can't do it. Now it seems that the first place of this grand competition is most likely to be the Li family. Li Yuanwu is worthy of being valued by the eldest prince's teacher. This combat strength is really terrifying. If the Li family of Iron Mountain City wins first place, they can dominate the 3 major cities and claim to be a family with outstanding achievements. In this way, the young master of the Long family just now is probably in big trouble. Everyone secretly thought that Li Yuanwu was terrifying, especially when almost all the martial techniques he cultivated had reached the peak of the spiritual martial technique, which was second only to the king martial technique. As they discussed, they couldn't help but look at Long Chun and even cast a pitiful look at him. At this moment, even Long Tianxing and the others couldn't help but feel their hearts tighten. Li Yuanwu was really too strong. With such combat strength, even Long Tianxing himself might not be a match for him. Li Yuanwu wiped the blood on his hands and looked at Long Chun from afar. He said indifferently, "Don't think about admitting defeat. After the grand competition of the 3 cities, there will be many rewards for the first place. There is no need for the Long family to exist in Iron Mountain City, for eyes met, and Long Chen's eyes slowly became cold. Although his rebirth had changed many things, the Li family's plot to destroy the Long family had never stopped. Now it was like fire and water, and the two could no longer coexist. Admit defeat? No. Your words now make me feel that there is no need for the Li family to exist in Iron Mountain City. Long Chen retorted sarcastically and said coldly. The people around were in an uproar. They only thought that Long Chen had lost his mind. With the cultivation shown by Li Yuanwu, the first place was almost in the bag. According to the heaven-defying rewards of this grand competition of the three cities and the Long family's withdrawal from the grand competition of the three cities, it was not difficult to destroy the Long family. Although these words were a bit arrogant, it was completely possible. However, in their opinion, even if Long Chen had now washed away his reputation as a waste, how could he be compared with Li Yuanwu? He even wanted to destroy the Li family. This was simply a fool's dream. Humph, who do you think you are? I'm afraid you won't even be in the top 30 in tomorrow's discussion. How dare you talk about destroying my Li family? You just defeated a mortal martial realm martial artist. Do you really think you are invincible? If you can reach the top 10, I will kneel down and kowtow to you. The people of the Long family are all cowards. I think you are just an idiot. Ha. The people of the Li family sneered one by one. They were very disdainful of Long Chen's words. Even though Long Chen showed that he was not a waste, with Li Yuanwu, they did not put Long Chen in their eyes. Chapter 35. Facing Wei Tsang in the afternoon, the weather gradually cooled down. Because the disciples of the Long family had withdrawn, the second round of the competition ended very quickly. In the end, there were only 60 people left from the 12 clans of the three cities. Tomorrow's battle would become a challenge according to the rules of the past. That is, 10 people were arranged on each of the 6 battle platforms. They could challenge at will, and the 10 people with the most wins would advance. On the other side, the battle had just ended. Elder Su, who was in the stands, could not help but want to ask Long Chen about the pill. In his opinion, Long Chen must have a great Grandmaster-level alchemist behind him. Only in this way could he have such combat strength in a short period of time from trash that everyone knew, and be able to refine such a unique chi-gathering pill. Let's wait until the grand competition of the three cities is completely over before we see this person. Otherwise, with the attention that the major clans are paying to him now, they will inevitably think that we are taking care of him. In the stands, Zhuo Bufan stopped Elder Su and Elder Zheng from going to the Long family to ask Long Chen about the pill. Elder Su and Elder Zheng looked at each other and agreed. After all, Long Chen represented the Long family and had formed a grudge with the Li family and the other 2 clans. However, they were quite curious about Long Chen now. They even had the idea of saving Long Chen if he was defeated. After a whole day of fighting, all the clans used all means to help the disciples who had advanced to make the final improvement. They tried their best to increase their strength, and even used many methods that they would not use in the past. After all, the rewards of this grand competition of the three cities were too tempting. Long Chen was not idle. He held a small carved long knife in his hand and engraved on the Qinggang sword in his hand. A thumb-sized groove appeared on the handle. Long Chen's forehead was covered in sweat. Until the next morning, his eyes could not help but become bloodshot. No wonder this formation is almost lost. It is far more declined than the path of alchemy. What is left behind are just some unorthodox things. Just a first-grade spirit rank inscription is enough to give me a headache. Long Chen looked at the Qinggang sword in his hand. He was really surprised by the difficulty of the array. One had to know that his divine sense was at the level of a dominator in his previous life. Now, it took him an entire night to carve a third-grade spirit rank inscription. Gravity inscription, harmonious spirit inscription. These 2 inscriptions directly raised the quality of the Cyan Ridge sword in his hand by several times. Immediately after, he placed the last top-grade spirit stone into the groove and then put it away again. However, When the sun had just risen in the morning, everyone had already gathered around the fighting ring. The remaining 60 outstanding cultivators from various clans were also waiting to see who their opponents were. These 60 people were at least in the 7th level of the mortal martial realm, and some were even in the spirit martial realm. None of them were weak. There were 10 people on each of the 6 fighting rings. Based on yesterday's observation, he had almost determined everyone's strength. Therefore, basically the strongest cultivators who could enter the top 10 were all separated. This method was probably to prevent the top 3 cultivators from meeting in advance, which would appear unfair. Of course, Long Chen was not in the plan. He was divided into 10 people on the first fighting ring. Coincidentally, the most popular person on this fighting ring was the Wei clan's Wei Song. On the 6 fighting rings, the 10 people could freely choose an opponent to challenge. The top 10 winners could advance to the next round. When the people of the Wei clan saw the list on the bulletin board, they suddenly burst into laughter. They were overjoyed, and some even directly shouted, "Long Chun, don't you admit defeat. I want to see if he can kill my Wei clan's people one by one." With just him, if he meets Wei Song, let's see if he can still talk nonsense. I think he won't even have the chance to admit defeat. Wei Song also stared at Long Chun from afar. The corner of his mouth revealed a sinister smile. He walked onto the stage, as if he couldn't wait to kill Long Chun. On the viewing platform, Elder Zheng and the other 2 were stunned. Looking at the expressions of the various clans who were mourning for Long Chun, they asked in confusion, "Zhuo Bufan, aren't you pushing him into the fire pit by dividing him like this? If Wei Song kills him, who are we going to ask about the matter of the medicinal pill? 2 elders, think about it carefully. I am saving him. If he meets that guy from the Li clan, he will definitely die. Even if it is another spirit martial realm cultivator, his chances of survival are not high. According to the rumors, 2 months ago, he was still trash at the first level of the mortal martial realm. Now, it is impossible for him to reach the mortal martial realm. Although he has a grudge with Wei Song, the first stage is the closest to us. Elder Zheng can just use some methods to give him a chance to admit defeat and save his life." Zhuo Bufan's words made Elder Zheng and Elder Su agree. Thinking about Long Chen's quick defeat, it was not bad. At least, they could quickly ask him about the Dan. Moreover, Elder Zheng had saved his life, so he would definitely be grateful. At that time, it would not be rude to introduce him to his master. In many places, battles had already begun. On the other side, Long Chun had already stepped onto the stage. The moment he stepped onto the stage, Wei Song suddenly attacked. Obviously, he did not intend to give Long Chun the slightest chance to admit defeat. His attack was aimed at Long Chen's mouth. When you're unable to admit defeat, I will let you experience the feeling of not knowing whether you are dead or alive. Wei Song sternly shouted, his eyes filled with tyranny. On the viewing platform closest to the first stage, a faint light appeared in Elder Zheng's hand. He was prepared to give Long Chun a chance to admit defeat at any time. As long as he admitted defeat, he would save him as quickly as possible. However, in the next moment his eyes narrowed, and he said in surprise, "This Long Chun has also reached the spirit martial realm." On the stage, 2 illusory dragon-esque elephants appeared behind Long Chun for the first time. Bang! Long Chun and Wei Song's fists suddenly collided, causing a deafening roar. "What? You are actually at the spirit martial realm." A surge of boundless power came from Wei Song's right hand, causing him to retreat more than 10 steps before he could stop himself. The surrounding people all revealed looks of disbelief. The entire Iron Mountain city was in an uproar. No one would have thought that the young master of the Long family, who was once called the trash of Iron Mountain City, would not only increase his cultivation, but also reach the first stage of the spirit martial realm. Moreover, he was at the second stage of the spirit martial realm with 2 illusory dragon-esque elephants. He was only 15 or 16 years old, but he had such a cultivation at such an age. This was simply incomprehensible. Chapter 36. Top 10. Long Chun. Long Chun. Under the astonished and shocked gazes of the various large families, the young members of the Long clan began to shout. Long Chun couldn't help but feel his blood boil. Unfortunately, only Long Chun knew that if he wanted to enter the spirit-severing realm, he would need to gather the strength of 34 Dracophants. In other words, if his spirit martial realm was calculated based on an ordinary person's Dracophant shadow, he would reach the unprecedented 36th layer. Even though Long Chun had reached the Dominator realm in his previous life, he had never heard of anyone who could surpass 9 Dracophants in the spirit martial realm. I didn't expect you to have already reached the second level of the spirit martial realm. I was careless this time. If this is what you have to boast shamelessly, then you can go die today. Wei Song stared at Long Chun. His right hand suddenly moved, and a long blade with black patterns appeared. Family members like him naturally had a storage ring, but the space inside wasn't large. Immediately after, 2 Dracophants began to condense behind Wei Song. A powerful aura suddenly spread out like a gust of wind. Impressively, he was also at the second level of the spirit martial realm. Black water pattern blade, tempered by heavy water. It can increase the user's strength by 500 gene and is indestructible. This blade is not bad. Elder Zheng, who was originally preparing to attack, casually said when he saw Wei Song take out the long blade. Wei Song was full of confidence. Long Chen's cultivation of the second level of the spirit martial realm didn't make him feel the slightest bit of fear. In fact, he had already reached the second level of the spirit martial realm during the large competition. The reason he hadn't broken through in the past year was because he had been honing a blade technique. Wei Song stared at Long Chun and sternly said, "It's not too late for you to admit defeat. Otherwise, you will definitely die by my hands." Wei Song stared at Long Chun. In his opinion, even if Long Chun had the strength of the second level of the spirit martial realm, he would only have one more chance to admit defeat. He definitely wouldn't be able to defeat him. I already said that today. I will kill every member of the Wei clan I see. Long Chun didn't express his opinion. It was as if he didn't put Wei Song in his eyes. Wei Song's face instantly darkened as he said, "Arrogant words. Since that's the case, I'll kill you even if I have to waste some effort." The instant Wei Song's voice fell, the black pattern long blade in his hand slashed out diagonally. The blade's shadows were like waves of roaring ocean waves. From top to bottom, they finally converged into a single blade. The imposing manner was extraordinary, and the swift and fierce feeling caused even the people below the stage to involuntarily take 2 steps back. The people below the stage immediately cried out in surprise. So strong. Wei Song's saber technique has already reached perfection. I'm afraid that if he practices it for another year, he will enter the realm of perfection. Even though I don't know how Long Chen managed to reach the second level of the spirit martial realm, he is still a bit weaker than Wei Song. That's right, Wei Song is older than him by about 7 years. In terms of martial techniques and strength usage, Wei Song is far from what he can compare with. Everyone was discussing spiritedly. Even Elder Zheng and the other 2 on the viewing platform couldn't help but nod their heads. Even though the 2 of them were alchemists at the second level of the spirit martial realm, Wei Song had a unique advantage because of his age. However, the crowd discovered another strange phenomenon. That was that Long Chun actually didn't even take out his long sword as he looked at the saber shadows that filled the sky. He just stood there in a daze. Did he give up? The crowd sighed. Even though Long Chun had reached the second level of the spirit martial realm, his martial techniques really couldn't compare to Wei Song's. He actually couldn't even dodge a single attack. HM? However, in the next moment, Wei Song's expression suddenly changed, because his long saber had actually directly pierced through Long Chen's body. It was actually an illusion. Bang! Immediately after, a huge force suddenly came from his long saber. It was as if a mountain had crashed into it. The huge force caused the web between his thumb and forefinger to explode. He felt as if all his internal organs had been displaced. The long saber couldn't help but fly out of his hand. Is this where your confidence comes from? Immediately after, Wei Song's vision blurred. In the next moment, he saw a fist imprint on his chest. Poochie Wade Song's entire body flew out like a kite. His chest felt as if it had been hit by a hammer. His face immediately turned the color of a pig's liver. Not only that, but the moment his feet were about to leave the ground, his right hand that was covered in blood was actually grabbed by Long Chun. Soon after, his entire body was clamped, and he was fiercely smashed into the ground of the fighting stage. Bang! 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 A series of muffled sounds resounded throughout the battlefield. On the huge fighting stage, rocks flew everywhere, and the ear-piercing sound of bones breaking could be heard. Hiss! This scene caused the other 8 participating disciples around the 2 of them to disperse with a bang. Their eyes were wide open and filled with terror. This was Wei Song, who was at the 2nd level of the spirit martial realm. Now, he was actually being smashed like a sandbag. What's going on? Wei Song was actually crushed. What a strong physical strength. He's really at the 2nd level of the spirit martial realm. Oh my God! Could it be that the Long family's young master had been hiding his cultivation all this time? He actually crushed Wei Song, who was at the same level as him. Cries of surprise continued to be heard all around. The Blood-Red City's Wei clan members suddenly stood up. The Wei clan's patriarch's face changed, and he shouted, "Have mercy!" The 12 big clans of the 3 big cities stared at Long Chun as if they were looking at a monster. They had already placed him in the top 10 of this competition. "Get lost!" Long Chun sneered. With a swing of his right hand, he threw Wei Song away. Wei Song flew several hundred meters and crashed into a small hill at the side of the grandstand. Rumble! The entire small mountain shook. Wei Song's body was like a pile of mud, limp on the ground. He couldn't be more dead. Everyone stared at Long Chun in horror. Even Elder Zheng and the other 2 people in the stands were stupefied at this scene. They were quite astonished. After a while, Elder Zheng's eyes flashed, and he murmured, "Is this person really only 15 or 16 years old? I'm afraid his strength is comparable to the 4th level of the spirit martial realm, especially his agility skill. I'm afraid it has already reached the perfection level. Moreover, the level of his agility skill is definitely not low." Interesting. Elder Zheng's voice was not low. It was clear that he was somewhat excited. The surrounding big clans heard this, and they all took a deep breath. They stared at Long Chun in horror. His agility skill had already reached the perfection level. Every skill needed at least a few years of steady practice to reach the perfection level. How old was Long Chun? No wonder the Long family members had all left, and he was the only one left. He wanted to reach the top 10, or even the top 3 by himself. Quick, look at Li Yuan Wu's battle stage. Just when everyone was feeling numb from Long Chun's battle strength, a scream came from the other battle stage. Everyone looked over and saw that except for Li Yuan Wu, the other 9 people on the stage had their throats slit. The 9 people didn't even have time to admit defeat. Li Yuan Wu has already reached the top 10. There's only one person left on the stage. Chapter 37. Lu Yi, you have a pure heart. Li Yuan Wu fought against 9 people and killed all of them with a single slash. He directly entered the top 10 with 9 victories. Countless people were terrified, and many of the big clans in the 3 cities were gloomy. Let's see, the champion of the other battle stage has also appeared. It's Su Lishan from the Fierce Tiger City. He also won 9 battles in a row. Zhou Yishan from the Fierce Tiger City only lost him. He also won 8 battles in a row. I'm afraid both of them can enter the top 10. Bai Ling won 9 battles in a row and killed 7. One person stands out. Along with the exclamations, the strongest cultivators of each battle stage appeared one after another. On Long Chen's battle stage, there were already 4 people lying in a pool of blood. The other 4 people admitted defeat one after another. Of the 4 people who died, 2 were from the Gu clan, and 2 were from the Li clan. Of course, there was also Wei Song who had just died at the hands of Long Chun. The 4 of them did not even have the chance to admit defeat and were killed by Long Chun with a single punch. Only now did the various great clans realize how laughable their words were at the beginning. Long Chun did indeed have the qualifications to be arrogant, and just as he had said, all the people from the Li clan, Wei clan, and Gu clan that he encountered were all killed by him. On the first stage, Long Chun had become a dark horse. After killing Wei Tsong, he directly entered the top 10, becoming the first young disciple of the Iron Mountain City's Long clan to enter the top 10 in many years. As for the word trash from the past, when he walked down from the stage, everyone's eyes were filled with awe. A 15 or 16-year-old Ling Qi realm cultivator was considered a genius in any place. Rest for a while. 4 hours later, the top 3 battles will begin and the first place will be challenged. As the battles on each battle stage ended, the top 10 had already appeared. Of the 12 big clans, the Lin clan and the Gu clan of the Iron Mountain City were directly eliminated. None of them entered the top 10. The Wei clan, who should have entered the top 10, also did not have anyone enter the top 10 because of Long Chun. On the contrary, the Fierce Tiger City's Su family had 2 people who had entered the top 10 at the same time. This made the other big families extremely envious. The fact that 2 of their disciples had entered the top 10 was enough for the Su family to obtain a large amount of resources, which made the Su family's status rise again. Within the Iron Mountain City, the Li family and the Long family had entered the top 10. Whether they were in the top 3 or not, their overall strength would completely surpass the Gu family and the Lin family. The expressions of the Gu clan members were not good. Unknowingly, the Gu clan master had walked into the Li clan's camp. Just as Long Chun was about to return to the Long family's camp, his body suddenly moved. His right hand quickly reached behind him, and then a soft and delicate hand was caught by his right shoulder. When he turned around, his expression couldn't help but change. The woman had a beautiful face and was wearing an alchemist's robe. It was Lu Yi. Little big brother, can you tell me how to refine those crack pills? Why is the efficacy of that pill so much higher than the qi gathering pill refined from ordinary green spirit grass? And why is there a crack? But little brother is about the same age as me. Can he really refine such a powerful pill? Lu Yi's eyes were clear. Like an ignorant kitten, she leaned towards Long Chun. A series of questions startled Long Chun, especially when the little hand that he subconsciously grabbed was not pulled away. Instead, she turned her hand and grabbed Long Chun's hand. Her face was full of expectation. Long Chun smiled. He felt that the little girl was quite interesting. He casually said, "If you want to learn, I can teach you after the competition. Also, I don't accept disciples." Lu Yi's cute face suddenly flashed with excitement. She actually hugged Long Chun in her arms and cried, "Big brother, are you serious? Can you really teach me? Yi will definitely learn." Long Chun's body suddenly tensed up. He subconsciously became vigilant, but the soft chest and the virgin fragrance of a girl made his heart tremble. "Yi, come back quickly." At this time, Su Lao's face darkened and he shouted from afar. Lu Yi was like a child who had done something wrong. She seemed to remember something and quickly let go of Long Chun. She stuck out her tongue at Long Chun and ran to Su Lao's side. Long Chun was stunned. He felt that the girl's mind was pure and she didn't seem like a mortal. Seeing the girl leave, he also turned and entered the Long family's camp. In the stands, Su Lao's face was very ugly. He reprimanded the wronged Lu Yi and said, "Yi, remember, people's hearts are sinister. You must not casually get close to people, let alone men. Uncle Su, little big brother, just promised to teach me how to refine pills and be my master. Yi just forgot father's teachings. But why can't I get close to men? Yi feels that little big brother is not a bad person." Lu Yi asked innocently like a child, as if she didn't know anything about the matters between men and women. Elder Su was also speechless, and a doting look flashed in his eyes. He thought to himself that Lu Yi was too infatuated with medicinal pills. Although she was a rare talent in alchemy that was hard to come by in 100 years, she knew nothing about the ways of the world. However, this pure and innocent heart of a child made him love her very much. "This boy is your master?" His tone is not small. "When the tournament of the 3 cities is over, I will have a good talk with him." Su Lao snorted coldly. In the Li family's camp, Li Yuanwu, Li Kong, and the Gu family's patriarch gathered together. Li Kong said in a deep voice, "Brother Gu, this is a wise move. My son Li Yuanwu is 100% sure that he will win the first place in this tournament of the 3 cities. When the time comes, as long as you and I join forces, the Long family will be like chickens and dogs." Brother Li Kang's words are reasonable. It's just that Long Chen's strength makes me a little worried. He is only 15 years old now. If we let him escape, even after destroying the Long family, I am afraid that we will be on tenterhooks. The Gu family's patriarch couldn't help but worry. Long Chen was really too young. At this age, he had the cultivation of the second level of the spiritual martial realm and could crush people of the same level. In a few years, they would not be able to resist him. His worries were not groundless. If they wanted to destroy the Long family, they had to eliminate all future troubles. At least, Long Chen could not be alive. At this time, Li Yuanwu sneered and said, "Long Chen? He is only at the second level of the spiritual martial realm. Killing Wei Song scared you to this extent?" When the Gu family's patriarch heard Li Yuanwu's sarcastic tone, his face became a little ugly. Just as he was about to speak, he saw Li Yuanwu's right hand flash and a cold light suddenly appeared. The surrounding temperature suddenly dropped and was filled with coldness. The Gu family's patriarch subconsciously exploded. His cultivation of the peak of the 4th level of the spiritual martial realm suddenly burst out. However, in the next moment, he felt a chill in front of his chest. Soon after, he saw that his robe had been cut open. He was aghast and lost his voice. Early of the 4th level of the spiritual martial realm, a king-level martial skill. Chapter 38. Chapter 38 Top 3 Deathmatch. A few hours passed in the blink of an eye. When the head of the Gu clan walked out of the Li clan's campsite, the competition for the top 3 positions was about to begin. Immediately after, it was the battle for the first place. Li Yuanwu killed 9 people on the same stage with a single sword strike. I'm afraid his strength is already comparable to the experts of the older generation. The first place is in the bag. First place is undoubtedly Li Yuanwu, but what about the top 3? In my opinion, Bai Ling from Blood Red City and Su Chun from Su family have a 90% chance of winning. What about the young master of the Long family? He suppressed Wei Song with the strength of the second level of the spirit martial realm and became the biggest dark horse of this year's great competition of the 3 cities. It's not impossible for him to fight for the top 3. No matter how strong he is, he's only at the second level of the spiritual martial realm. On the other hand, Bai Ling and Su Chun are both famous people from the great competition of the 3 cities. Now, they're both at the 3rd level of the spiritual martial realm, or even at the peak of the spiritual martial realm. The gap between their realms is difficult to make up for. The competition hadn't even started yet, but the sound of discussion was already overwhelming. The 10 young disciples standing on the first battle platform were the strongest cultivators under the age of 25 in the 3 big cities. And they also won a lot of elixir resources for their families. Because of the strength shown in the grand competition of the 3 cities, it was enough for their families to recruit many guests in the spirit martial realm. Seeing the excitement of the crowd, Elder Zheng and the other 2 in the stands laughed. Elder Su even stepped forward. With a wave of his right hand, a long sword with purple patterns appeared on the long table in front of him. Following that, his right hand moved again and 3 golden recommendation letters appeared. On each of the letters, the words Royal Academy were written in flamboyant calligraphy. The windy chant purple vein sword was refined by the Empire's #1 blacksmith, Qing Yinzi. It's a 9th grade spirit sword, and it's hard to get even with 100,000 gold. The Royal Academy is the place where the Empire invests all of its resources to nurture the nobles of the Imperial Palace. There are countless experts and countless famous teachers. Before entering the 5 great sects, it is definitely the best place to cultivate. It will definitely bring endless benefits to one's future path of cultivation. Elder Su's words made everyone's blood boil. Each of the 10 of you will receive 200 spirit charging pills. Now, there are 2 paths in front of you. Elder Su paused for a moment before continuing. The first is to fight for the top 3 positions and obtain the right to enter the Royal School's recommendation letter. The second is to give up because the following battles will be different from the previous ones. According to the rules set by the Empire this time, only one person can survive on the next battle stage. In other words, the battle for the top 3 will be fought to the death. Su Lao's words caused the 12 families in the 3 cities to fall into chaos. The rewards for this grand competition of the 3 cities were unprecedentedly generous, but the rules were that they had to fight to the death. Only Long Chun, who was below the stage, clearly knew that this was the Blue Dragon Empire's method. After this grand competition of the 3 cities, the situation of the various cities being divided would be gone forever. Every 3 cities would have an overlord clan, and the Empire would distribute the resources. The grand competition of the 3 cities would no longer exist. I choose to give up. I give up too. And me, I give up too. After a long while, there were actually 4 people who chose to give up. These 4 people were the Fierce Tiger City's Liu clan, the Chung clan, the Blood Red City's Zhou clan, one of the 2 brothers from the Su clan, and one from the Blood Red City's Lian clan. The 4 of them didn't look good, but they knew that there was almost no chance for them to be in the top 3. The strongest among them was only at the 2nd level of the Ling Qi layer. These 4 people know their own limits. Li Yuan Wu from the Li clan will definitely be in the top 3, and he may even become the champion. Bai Ling Heir from a Bai clan is also at the 3rd level of the Ling Qi layer. They basically have no chance of winning. As for the other disciple from the Su clan, his strength is comparable to Bai Ling Heir's. Not only those 3, the others are also old people who have participated in the previous grand competition of the 3 cities. Sun Wu from the Sun clan is 25 years old, and he was in the top 10 last time. I'm afraid that his cultivation is at the peak of the 3rd level of the Ling Qi layer, or even the 4th level of the Ling Qi layer. In the past 2 days, he defeated his opponents in 1 move. Yes, there's also Chung Bao from the Fierce Tiger City. He is almost 25 years old, and he was in the top 10 last time. I'm afraid that his cultivation is not weaker than Sun Wu's. In the blink of an eye, there were only 6 people left on the stage. Except for Li Yuan Wu and Long Chun, who were slightly younger, the other 4 people were already 24 or 25 years old. After a while, Su Lao frowned and asked again, "Is there anyone else who wants to withdraw?" While speaking, he looked at Long Chun. Long Chun had just defeated Wei Song, who was at the 2nd level of the Ling Qi layer. Although it was shocking, after all, his cultivation was only at the 2nd level of the Ling Qi layer. However, the people on the stage were at least at the 3rd level of the Ling Qi layer. Countless disciples under the stage seemed to have realized that Long Chun didn't have the slightest intention of giving up. They couldn't help but talk about it. Even the 4 people who had just chosen to give up couldn't help but sneer at Long Chun. They were all at the 2nd level of the Ling Qi layer, but they knew that with their cultivation, it was impossible for them to be in the top 3. They secretly thought that Long Chun didn't know when to retreat. At this moment, if he didn't withdraw, he would definitely lose his life. At this moment, even Long Tianxing couldn't help but stand up. He looked at Long Chun from afar and said worriedly, "Chun'er, since you've already entered the top 10, the 200 spirit charging pills are enough. There's no need to continue fighting." Although Long Chun had exploded with unprecedented strength and even killed Long Haoyan, who was at the 4th level of the Ling Qi layer, Long Haoyan cultivation was almost completely dependent on pills. He had only reached the 4th level of the Ling Qi layer after dozens of years. He couldn't be compared to the group of young people on the stage, especially now that there was Li Yuan Wu on the stage. He came from the imperial capital and was from the same sect as the eldest prince. If Long Chun encountered him, it would be difficult to determine whether he would live or die. However, at this moment, Long Chun slowly shook his head and said to Su Lao in a deep voice, "I choose to continue fighting for the top 3. Please continue the competition." Does this person really think that he is invincible after defeating Wei Song? Now, Anyone on the stage can easily crush him. This Long Chun is too arrogant. Not to mention Li Yuan Wu, even the other 4 people have all reached the peak of the 3rd level of the Ling Qi layer. Their martial skills have all reached the great success stage. Even the older generation of the 4th level of the Ling Qi layer is no match for them. He's just at the 2nd level of the Ling Qi layer. He's simply courting death. After Long Chen's words, the crowd immediately went into an uproar. They only thought that he was too arrogant and didn't know when to retreat. He had failed to live up to Su Lao's expectations. Su Lao shook his head and sighed. In the end, he said, "Since you insist, then life and death are up to fate. The 6 of you will draw lots to determine your opponents. There is only one rule for this battle, and that is that only one person can survive." Following Su Lao's order, he waved his right hand and a bamboo tube fell straight on the first stage. Several people stepped forward and took a bamboo stick from the bamboo tube. Everyone looked deeply at Long Chun and even had a kind of look of anticipation. Now that there were only 6 people left, it meant that as long as they won one battle, they would directly enter the top 3. And Long Chun was obviously the easiest opponent to defeat. As long as they drew him, it was equivalent to directly entering the top 3. Chapter 39. Fighting against those with higher cultivation levels. The final battle of the top 3 was about to begin. Everyone from the big families stared at Long Chun. Compared to the many experts at LV3 Spiritual Martial Realm on the stage, Long Chun, who was at LV2 Spiritual Martial Realm, was the best opponent. Following Chung Bao's loud laughter, the members of the Fierce Tiger City's Chung clan all stood up in excitement. They felt as if they were blessed by the heavens. Haha, someone from the Chung clan will enter the Imperial City College. Once he gets into the top 3, he will be able to enter the Imperial City College. Congratulations, Chung clan leader. The top 3 is already in our hands. Damn it, the Chung clan got it. If Sun Wu got it, our Sun clan would be in the top 3. Now that we have to fight against other cultivators at the 3rd level of the Spiritual Martial Realm, we will have a 50% chance of winning. Suddenly, the Sun clan and the other clans were jealous. They thought that such a good opportunity was taken away by the Chung clan. Li Yuan Wu against Su Chun, Bai Ling against Sun Wu, Long Chun against Chang Bao. The 6 of them looked at each other and then stepped onto the stage. In the eyes of the crowd, except for Long Chun, the other 5 were very confident in themselves. Otherwise, they wouldn't have accepted the challenge. Long Chun and Cheng Bao stepped onto the first stage. Li Yuan Wu and Su Chan stepped onto the second stage. Bai Ling and Sun were on the third stage. Su Chun and Sun were on guard. No matter if it was Bai Ling or Li Yuan Wu, both of them were very strong. They didn't dare to be careless. On the other hand, Cheng Bao, who was fighting against Long Chun, looked very relaxed. It was as if the top 3 were already in the bag. Haha, Long Chun, I want to thank you on behalf of the Chung clan. If the top 3 battles weren't for the fact that it was a life and death battle, maybe I would have let you live. But now, it seems like I have to wrong you. Cheng Bao stared at Long Chun mockingly. His voice was full of mockery. In his opinion, Long Chun was able to reach the top 3 because of luck. If he had met someone in the top 10 in the previous rounds, he would have been defeated long ago. Long Chun shook his head. Cheng Bao was only at the 3rd level of the spirit martial realm, but his tone wasn't small. Long Chun didn't want to waste his breath on him. He replied in a deep voice, "Let's start. Make your move." Those 3 simple words seemed to make Cheng Bao feel a great humiliation. His entire face suddenly became gloomy. "I originally wanted to let you die, but now it seems that if I don't trample on you, you really think that you are invincible just because you are at the 2nd level of the spiritual martial realm." As soon as Cheng Bao finished speaking, he didn't even unsheath the saber in his left hand. Instead, he used his right hand to mobilize all the strength in his body to attack. Behind him, 3 dragon elephant phantoms rose and fell. Even the 4th dragon elephant phantom was close to condensing. You're only at the second level of the spiritual martial realm. Even if you're 1,000 times stronger, so what? I can break your 10,000 techniques with one punch. Chung Bao sneered. The difference in strength between the two of them was close to 2 whole levels, which was equivalent to the difference in strength of a single punch of almost 2,000 pounds. If Chung Bao was an ordinary spiritual martial realm warrior, his strength would be close to twice that of a spiritual martial realm warrior. Just this ordinary punch alone would be impossible for a spiritual martial realm warrior to take. The people around also shook their heads. They secretly thought that Long Chun didn't know when to retreat. He dared to participate in the life and death battle of the top 3 with a spiritual martial realm warrior at the second level. It was impossible for him to take this attack alone. The best way was to rely on his agile body movement to dodge it. Unfortunately, the crowd miscalculated again. They all stared at Long Chun as if they were crazy. They saw that Long Chun didn't have the slightest intention of dodging. Moreover, like Chung Bao, he didn't have the slightest intention of using a weapon. He just met the attack with a punch. He actually wanted to compete with Chung Bao in terms of strength with a spiritual martial realm warrior at the second level. Bang! The 2 fists collided. There was a burst of roaring sound. The fighting stage under their feet cracked inch by inch, and dust flew everywhere. Long Chun didn't even take a step back. Although Long Chun was only at the second level of the spiritual martial realm, his strength was no less than that of a spiritual martial realm warrior at the 4th level. Under this punch, the crowd seemed to have seen Wei Tsong's previous punch. Now, they realized that even Chung Bao, who was at the peak of the 3rd level of the spiritual martial realm, took 2 steps back. This meant that although Long Chun was only at the 2nd level of the spiritual martial realm, his strength was comparable to that of a spiritual martial realm warrior at the 4th level. For a moment, the crowd was inexplicably shocked. Every level of the spiritual martial realm had a difference of 1,000 pounds of strength. The difference between levels was like a natural moat. Only a few gifted geniuses could fight above their level. Could it be that Long Chun was such a person? The crowd kept exclaiming. Chung Bao felt a burning pain in his right hand. His face suddenly turned ashen. He said in a deep voice, "I didn't think that you would hide your strength so deeply." It seems that when the purple mist sealed the mountain, you must have obtained some kind of high-level spiritual medicine that increased your strength. However, this is the end. You can't beat me just by relying on your physical strength. As Chung Bao finished speaking, he finally pulled out his long sword. However, Long Chun sneered and disappeared like a phantom. When he reappeared, he was in front of Chung Bao. Chung Bao's hands weren't slow. Although he was shocked by Long Chun's speed, his right hand suddenly chopped out with his sword. Bang! Long Chun didn't dodge his punch at all. It directly bombarded Chung Bao's long sword. His fists danced like a river. Unexpectedly, 10 punches poured out in a row. Each punch was stronger than the previous one, and each punch was faster than the previous one. Chung Bao felt that he didn't even have a chance to use his long sword. Every move was accurately bombarded by Long Chun. The first punch made Chung Bao retreat a few steps. The second punch made him retreat dozens of steps. The third punch, he could only helplessly put away his long sword and use all his strength to face the incoming fist shadow head-on. The crowd was in an uproar. Countless people stared at Long Chun in horror. The battle was one-sided from the beginning. Long Chun's fist against the sword forced Chung Bao to retreat step by step. He didn't have the slightest strength to fight back. In the stands, Elder Zheng and the other 2 people were so shocked that they sat up. Elder Zheng even lost his voice and said, "Not only has this person's body movement reached the perfection of martial arts, but even his fist technique has also reached the perfection of martial arts. Even his fist intent has been formed. Chung Bao can't escape from his control at all. I didn't expect Iron Mountain City to have such a young man." Just as Elder Zheng was evaluating, Chung Bao on the stage screamed. His entire chest collapsed in an instant. Under Long Chun's 8th fist shadow, he couldn't be more dead. Oh my God, the young master of the Long family actually crushed Chung Bao, who was at the peak of level 3 spiritual martial realm, within 10 moves. This is a battle of a higher level. This is a battle of a higher level. Long Chen's cultivation is enough to rank him in the top 3. The crowd kept exclaiming. In the Chung family's camp, the faces of the people were as cold as ice. They originally thought that after encountering Long Chen, Chung Bao would definitely rank in the top 3. But now he was killed by Long Chen within 10 moves. Chapter 40. Challenging Li Yuanwu as Long Chen crushed Chung Bao, who was at the 3rd level of the spiritual martial realm. With the strength at the 2nd level of the spiritual martial realm, several families looked at the Long family with envy. This victory meant that Long Chen was qualified to enter the Imperial College. This was simply a great honor. Just the fact that they were able to enter the royal school was enough to make everyone wary of the Long family. Don't be too arrogant. No matter how strong he is, he's only at level 2 of the spiritual martial realm. If Chung Bao didn't underestimate him and didn't use his blade skills, he wouldn't have lost so miserably. An elder of the Chung family shouted. So what if you're in the top 3? The Long family and the Li family are both in Iron Mountain City. If Li Yuanwu gets first place, the Long family can't become the overlord of Iron Mountain City. How can there be 2 tigers in one mountain? Even the elders of the Chung family couldn't help but mock. Chung Bao's death made them hate the Long family to the core. However, after a short moment of surprise, the people around them thought that what the 2 elders said was not completely unreasonable. After all, Chung Bao was defeated so miserably that he didn't use his blade skills at all. Boom! While the crowd was still in shock from Long Chen, on the other side of the fighting stage where Li Yuanwu and Su Chen were, there was a beast-like roar. Everyone looked over. They saw that Su Chen's hair was disheveled and his face was very embarrassed. The corner of his mouth was full of blood. With a beast-like roar, his cultivation suddenly surged and the shadow of a dragon elephant quickly condensed behind him. Level 4 of the spiritual martial realm. My God, Su Chen used the formation to suppress his cultivation. Now that the seal has been lifted, he actually stepped into level 4 of the spiritual martial realm. Li Yuanwu didn't use his full strength from the beginning to the end. What level of the spiritual martial realm is he? Will Su Chen be able to turn the tables after using his full strength? You're really strong, but it's all over now. For this competition, I seal my cultivation for 10 months. Now I've directly stepped into the middle level of level 4 of the spiritual martial realm. You're definitely not my opponent, shouted Su Chen ferociously. However, Li Yuanwu, who was standing in front of him, was laughing mockingly and said, even if you have broken through to the 4th Ling Qi layer, you will still die under my sword. Li Yuanwu's words were extremely arrogant, and even the people from the other families could not help but frown. However, when they thought about how Li Yuanwu's master was a wandering elder of the 5 great sects, as well as the first prince's master, they could not say anything. This kind of status was truly incomparable to the people of the 3 cities. After Long Chen defeated Chung Bao, he casually looked at the battle on the 2 fighting rings. On the other side, the woman named by Ling also crushed Sun Wu with an absolute advantage. Her slender and long hands were superb. It was really extraordinary. Li Yuanwu is stronger than Bai Ling, even though he has only broken through to the 3rd Ling Qi layer. I'm afraid that even cultivators of the 4th Ling Qi layer would not be able to defeat him, thought Long Chen while staring at Li Yuanwu. Then, just as Long Chen had said, Li Yuanwu finally released his cultivation. 3 dragon elephant illusions rushed out, and the long sword in his hand whistled like the wind. His sword was terrifyingly fast. The people around were astonished, and even the patriarchs of the big families could not help but exclaim out loud. Sweeping sword shadow, graceful 2nd sword shadow, deadly 3rd sword shadow. Li Yuanwu's speed was getting faster and faster. Obviously, he was only at the 3rd Ling Qi layer, but in just 3 sword strikes, Su Chen's head was sent flying. Killing a cultivator at the 4th Ling Qi layer in 3 sword strikes. Li Yuanwu was in the limelight for a while. Even the 3 referees in the stands nodded secretly. They thought that Li Yuanwu deserved the first place this time. With his cultivation at the 3rd Lingqi layer, he crushed a cultivator at the 4th Lingqi layer. Perhaps even the older generation of the families in the 3 cities could not compete with him. The top 3 of the 3 cities tournament is Li Yuanwu from the Leaf family of Iron Mountain City, Long family of Iron Mountain City, Long Chun, by family of Blood Red City, by Ling. In the midst of countless noisy discussions, Zhuo Bufan, one of the 3 referees in the stands, stood up and announced loudly to the crowd. Everyone sighed. No one would have thought that 2 of the top 3 experts were from Iron Mountain City, the weakest of the 3 cities in the past. And one of them was even recognized as trash. However, after today, no one would mention the word trash again. Long Chun would also become a genius who could enter the Royal Academy. Next is the battle for the first place. The person who gets the first place will be treated as a meritorious family of the Empire. This battle will end here. If you can enter the top 3, you can compete for a place on the Immortal Path next year. The next battle will end here. Don't hurt your life. Then Zhuo Bufan announced the rules of the last battle. As his voice fell, Bai Ling stared at Li Yuanwu and Long Chen deeply. Finally, she shook her head and said, I give up the fight for the first place. Li Yuanwu from the Leaf family deserves the first place. I am no match for him. Bai Ling from Blood Red City directly chose to give up the qualification to compete for the first place. This was completely unexpected, but then everyone smiled bitterly. The strength that Li Yuanwu just showed was probably only a cultivator at the 5th Lingqi layer could fight with him. It was wise for such a person to admit defeat. After all, the resources of Blood Red City and the other 2 cities could not be compared with the imperial capital. Regardless of the realm, Li Yuanwu was invincible in terms of martial arts. Bai Ling turned around and was about to walk down the stage. When she passed by Long Chun, she paused and said kindly, You can't defeat Li Yuanwu. You should leave with me as soon as possible. After speaking, the woman did not stop at all. She walked down the stage and entered the Bai family's camp. Long Chun could tell that the woman's words were not sarcastic, but a kind reminder. He could not help but look at her a few more times at his heart. However, he shook his head. Without waiting for Long Chun to speak, Long Tianxing stood up again and said to Long Chun from afar, China, the top 3 is enough. You can enter the Imperial Academy, and your future is limitless. As for the treatment of the meritorious family, my Long family does not need it. Many disciples of the Long family also stared at Long Chun. Although they had great expectations for Long Chun, at this moment, they did not want Long Chun to fight with Li Yuanwu. Next, I announced that the first place is Li. As Long Tianxing's voice fell, Alchemist soon nodded in agreement. He directly announced the final result. I don't agree. I want to challenge Li Yuanwu. However, before he could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Long Chun. Long Chun took a step forward and walked in front of Li Yuanwu. He looked at him indifferently, and a disdainful aura unconsciously spread out. Chapter 41. 2 Tigers Fight Challenge, Li Yuanwu. Hearing Long Chen's words, Long Tianxing's expression changed. Li Yuanwu's battle strength had shocked even him. Long Chun was only at the 2nd level of the spiritual martial realm. How could he fight against him? Even old Zheng, who was on the viewing platform, couldn't help but walk up and confirm, Boy, think carefully. Li Yuanwu has the strength of the peak of the 3rd level of the spiritual martial realm. His fist has the strength of 2,000 jin. Moreover, his martial skills all come from the imperial capital. Old Zheng's words were self-evident. He was telling Long Chun that the person in front of him was at the 3rd level of the spiritual martial realm. Wei Cong and Cheng Bao could not be compared to him. A wisp of a smile appeared on the corners of Long Chen's mouth, and he said, I told you that I'll kill every single member of the Li clan that I encounter today. Kill every member I meet. Long Chen's words shocked everyone. However, They immediately shook their heads and smiled bitterly. They secretly thought that Long Chun was just courageous. It was not worth it to lose his life because of this. Under everyone's gaze, Li Yuan Wu stood up with a mocking expression. He stared at Long Chun and said, "Ha! How about this? The two of us have another battle to the death. As long as one of us is not dead, this battle is not over. How about it? Battle to the death?" Hearing Li Yuan Wu's words, Long Tianxing's expression suddenly changed. He hurriedly shouted, "Chun-er, you can't agree." Originally, the battle for the top of the list was not over. Even if Long Chun was not a match for Li Yuan Wu, he still had a chance to live. However, once he agreed, this battle would become a battle of life and death. Li Yuan Wu wants to kill Long Chun. If Long Chun agrees, he will definitely die. Li Yuan Wu originally had a deep hatred for the Li clan. Now that Long Chun wants to die, how could he not accept it? Everyone sighed. They secretly thought that Li Yuan Wu's words were simply going to end Long Chen's life. "Come on stage." However, Long Chen's answer surprised everyone. He actually agreed. Li Yuan Wu held his head high and laughed loudly as he stepped onto the first battle stage. Long Chen also stepped onto the battle stage. Below the stage, Long Tianxing seemed to have lost all his strength. He couldn't help but take a few steps back. His face was a little pale. After a while, he whispered to all the disciples of the Long family, "If Long Chen's life is in danger, we must protect him even if we have to sacrifice the entire family." Compared to the Long family, the people from the Li family and the Gu family all had expressions of schadenfreude on their faces. This was especially true for the head of the Li family, Li Kong, who couldn't help but laugh out loud. It was as if he could see Long Chen's tragic death at the hands of Li Yuan Wu, and then, after the end of the grand competition of the three cities, he would directly destroy the grand occasion of the Long family with his family's rallying power. On the spectator stand, Elder Zheng and the other two could only shake their heads and continue to watch the competition. Behind the three of them, Lu Yi stared at Long Chun and worriedly asked Elder Su, "Little brother won't lose, right? He promised to teach me the alchemy skills." Elder Su was startled. Then he smiled helplessly and replied, "I think there's an 80% to 90% chance that the alchemy pill was not refined by him. Even if it was really refined by him, I'm afraid he won't be able to survive today." On the battle stage, Long Chun and Li Yuan Wu stood opposite each other. Li Yuan Wu stared at Long Chun and said mockingly, "If I'm not wrong, you must have obtained a great opportunity when the purple mist sealed the mountain. That's why you were able to reach such a cultivation level in such a short time. However, your luck has come to an end. Today, on this battle stage, I will let you experience the most painful thing in life." Oh, Li Tian and Li Su once thought so, but unfortunately, they both died at my hands in the end. Long Chun stared at Li Yuan Wu's arrogant face and said indifferently. Li Yuan Wu's face turned completely gloomy when he heard this because he saw the storage ring in Long Chen's hand, which he had given to Li Su. On the battle stage, as soon as Long Chen's voice fell, Long Chen's sword was suddenly unsheathed with a clang. As the Qin Gang sword appeared, Long Chen's aura soared into the sky. A golden light flashed in his cold eyes, and streaks of sharp qi scattered in all directions. At this moment, he seemed to have once again become the king who looked down on the world from his previous life. Seeing Long Chen's aura become so terrifying in the blink of an eye, Li Yuan Wu could not help but be startled. However, in the next moment he roared, "Sweeping sword shadow! This sword will cut off one of your arms." Li Yuan Wu roared, and a long sword appeared in his hand, emitting a dazzling cold light. In the blink of an eye, it was aimed at Long Chen's right shoulder. Wong. The cold light was so fast that it was as if the air had been cut in half. Clang, clang, clang. A series of metallic sounds rang out in an instant. The moment the sword light was about to slash Long Chen's shoulder, it was actually deflected by the Qin Gang sword in Long Chen's hand. Waves of violent wind spread out in all directions. Long Chen's attack was not defeated. Li Yuan Wu's eyes suddenly focused, but his speed did not slow down at all. Instead, His figure rushed forward again, taking advantage of the moment when Long Chun attacked with his sword. Second sword, fleeting swan. Third sword, taking life. The ice-cold long sword tore through the air, producing a crisp sound. Under the cold light, the surrounding temperature plummeted. Long Chun is going to lose. These three sword moves are the moves that killed Sun Wu. He definitely won't be able to block them. The crowd exclaimed one by one. It was already rare for Long Chun to be able to dodge the first attack. It was impossible for him to dodge the next two sword moves. Wind-riding swordsmanship, wind slashing. Long Chun seemed to be unaware of it. His eyes were as calm as water. Behind him, two illusory shadows of dragons and elephants suddenly appeared. On the long sword in his hand, light blue lines kept flashing. For a moment, there was a storm around the long sword. Wherever the sword light passed, it destroyed everything. Ka, 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 ka. The two swords clashed, and the sound of metal clashing continued. Long Chun did not retreat at all, and his robe fluttered. He did not dodge. Next, he easily blocked the two moves that had just killed Sun Wu, who was at level 3 of the spiritual martial realm. Bang! However, before the crowd's exclamation had died down, they saw Li Yuan Wu retreat violently. There was a faint line of blood on his neck. Good. Li Yuan Wu's voice was completely cold. He shouted, "I didn't expect you to have such strength. I underestimated you. I didn't expect you to have such attainments in swordsmanship." Long Chun did not comment. The wind-riding swordsmanship was a swordsmanship that he had learned when he joined a Wanjian sect when he was young in his previous life. He had not used it for many years. Otherwise, this move would have been enough to kill Li Yuan Wu directly. But it's over. I'll let you see the real king's swordsmanship. Long Chun was stunned. He thought that this guy did not recognize the wind-riding swordsmanship as a king's swordsmanship. However, he immediately understood. After all, the wind-riding swordsmanship belonged to the Wanjian sect, one of the 5 biggest sections. Moreover, the wind-riding swordsmanship looked simple and unadorned. Just as Li Yuan Wu's voice sounded, his body turned into an illusion. Immediately, hundreds of sword lights shot out in succession in the blink of an eye. They crisscrossed each other and covered all of Long Chun's escape routes like a huge net. This attack was unavoidable, and there was no way to escape. Save him. Chapter 42. Chapter 42, One Sword of Life and Death. Sword light filled the sky, radiating light in all directions. Every sword strike produced a series of sonic booms, and chi waves scattered in all directions. Long Chun was standing in the center of the sword light, and there was no way to avoid it. Everyone secretly thought that in the 3 cities, those who hadn't cultivated king-tier martial skills, only those at the 5th level of the spirit martial realm would be able to resist this move. Long Tianxing and the many elders of the Long family were about to forcefully rescue Long Chun. But the moment they charged out, Li Kong, the leader of the Gu family, and the many elders leaped out to stop them. This is a battle of life and death. Could it be that the Long family wants to break the rules? Long Tianxing and the others were stopped in an instant. In just an instant, the sky was filled with sword shadows, and Long Tianxing's face turned pale. On the fighting ring, Long Chun had already been submerged in countless rays of sword light. No one knew whether he was dead or alive. In the sword light, Long Chun's face was still indifferent. Facing the countless sword nets, he only smiled faintly. After scanning the area with his divine sense, Long Chun roared, and the sword in his hand soared into the sky, leaving behind countless afterimages. The sword light was dazzling, like a thunderbolt. King stage martial skill, sword light lightning slash. Shockwaves spread out in all directions, and the sword net that filled the sky actually shattered inch by inch, collapsing in an instant. However, this sword was still not over. Another untraceable attack came flying behind him like an antelope's horn. Impossible! Before the sword light arrived, a furious voice could be heard. Boom! The metallic sound rang out again. Countless people stood up in unison. Hundreds and thousands of eyes stared fixedly at the sword in Long Chen's hand, only to see blood splatter out from his sword. He dodged it, no. He broke through. Long Chen broke through a king-tier martial skill. That blood is Li Yuanwu's. His entire arm was chopped off. How is that possible? He's only at the second level of the Ling Qi layer, and he's fighting against Li Yuanwu, who's at the third level of the Ling Qi layer and has a king-level martial skill. This sword strike set off a storm amongst the 12 families of the 3 cities. Countless people's eyes widened, and it was as if thunder had exploded in their minds. Following the crowd's exclamations, Li Kong and the others quickly turned around, and their faces were full of shock. He had never thought that Long Chen would be able to break through this attack, and that Li Yuanwu's arm would be cut off. How could this be? Kong took a few steps back. On the battle platform, Li Yuanwu's face was ferocious. His left arm was cut off at the shoulder, and his clothes were soaked in blood. This sword technique is definitely not a spiritual rank sword technique. You actually have a king rank martial skill. At this moment, Li Yuanwu finally saw how extraordinary Long Chen's sword technique was. He'd never imagined that a place like Iron Mountain City would actually have a king rank or even a king rank martial skill. Long Chen also frowned slightly. He thought to himself that Li Yuanwu was quite strong. The sword just now had been aimed at his left chest, but he had forcefully used the force of the sword to dodge it. He had only lost an arm. However, Li Yuanwu was quite talented. Although he was only at the peak of the third level of the Ling Qi layer, his strength was comparable to that of a warrior at the fourth level of the Ling Qi layer. His king stage sword skill was comparable to a warrior at the fifth level of the Ling Qi layer. Long Chen's strength was comparable to that of a warrior at the fourth level of the Ling Qi layer, but he had only condensed the strength of 2 dragon elephants. It was understandable that his sword strike did not achieve the desired effect. Do you think you can win like this? Today, not only will I kill you, but I will also make your entire Long family pay the price. Li Yuanwu's eyes were blood red. His right hand quickly hit a few major acupuncture points on his chest. Then, the blood on his left arm started to jump and spread all over his body. In a moment, his entire body was covered in blood. His qi was increasing rapidly, and he broke through the barrier of the fourth level of the Ling Qi layer. The initial stage of the fourth level of the Ling Qi layer. The middle stage of the fourth level of the Ling Qi layer. The peak of the fourth level of the Ling Qi layer. Long Chen's divine thought clearly captured the changes in Li Yuanwu's cultivation. However, he also felt that almost half of Li Yuanwu's blood essence had disappeared. He was as thin as a dead tree. Secret blood skill? Elder Zheng and alchemist Su's expressions changed. The secret blood skill was a secret skill that all disciples of the 5 sects knew. It used the power of blood essence to break through the cultivation in a short time. It was used to save one's life. They did not expect Li Yuanwu's master to teach him this skill. Kill him. Cut him into pieces. Li Kong stood up when he saw this scene. His face was unprecedentedly ferocious. Long Chen's expression finally became serious. Facing Li Yuanwu, who was at the peak of the fourth level of the Ling Qi layer, he finally became serious. Without waiting for Li Yuanwu to make a move, Long Chen finally took the initiative to attack for the first time. It was fine if he did not move, but when he moved, it was like thunder. With one step, Long Chen's figure disappeared from the spot. There was a faint lightning at the place where he had been standing. It was the king stage martial skill, Thunder, Rush, 7 steps. You're courting death. Li Yuanwu was like a ferocious ghost as he shouted ferociously. Immediately, the long sword in his hand slashed out crazily, creating countless sword lights. When Long Chen appeared, a long sword stabbed straight between his eyebrows. King stage, sword skill, sword light thunder cut. Boom, 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 boom. The sound of thunder spread in all directions. There were shadows of thunder and lightning in the air. A destructive intent swept out in all directions. At this moment, Long Chen's figure seemed to be boundlessly tall as he turned into a god. Crack! With a sword, Long Chen's figure appeared behind Li Yuanwu. The Qing Gang sword in his hand actually emitted a crisp sound. A grain-sized crack extended from the hilt of the sword upwards. Sword essence. This kid actually has the Thunder Rush sword essence. In the stands, Elder Zheng seemed to have seen something inconceivable and cried out involuntarily. Unfortunately, at this moment, countless people in the audience were stunned, because as his voice fell, Li Yuanwu's body actually split into two and fell down with a loud bang. Li Yuanwu was dead. For a moment, the scene was terrifyingly quiet. Even the sound of heartbeats could be heard, but this heartbeat was very rapid. After a few breaths, there was an uproar. Countless people felt as if they were dreaming and took a deep breath of cold air. The head of the Li family, Li Kong, directly sat on the ground. Blood spurted out of his mouth, and he fainted on the ground. How could this be? Kill him for me. Behind the Li family, the son of the Jinyuan general, Xie Chongfeng's expression changed drastically. It was as if he had just realized that Li Yuanwu had died in the hands of Long Chen. After a furious roar, he actually led the 100 black armored soldiers behind him and charged directly at Long Chen. Long Tianxing and the other elders of the Long family instantly reacted and rushed up without a hair's breadth get lost. However, after Xie Chongfeng's roar, the 5 dragon elephants behind him soared into the sky. Under one punch, Long Tianxing vomited blood and flew away. Several elders of the Long family were directly killed by one punch. His strength was terrifying. You want to die? Chapter 43. Chapter 43, Everybody Can Be Killed. Xie Chongfeng, the son of the Empire's Jinyuan general, had already reached the 5th level of the spiritual martial realm. Even though Long Tianxing had reached the 5th level of the spiritual martial realm with the help of Long Chen, he couldn't be compared to Xie Chongfeng. Xie Chongfeng had come from the imperial capital, so his martial skills and agility were at least at the 7th level of the spiritual martial realm. With such a movement technique, it was likely that no one in the 3 great cities would be able to fight against him. Several Long family elders of the spirit martial realm were killed in an instant. Long Tianxing was seriously injured and flew out. Nearly 100 spirit martial realm warriors rushed towards Long Chen. Xie Chongfeng was the first to bear the brunt. He didn't care about Long Chen's shout at all. He was entrusted by the first prince to follow Li Yuanwu. Now that Li Yuanwu had died at the hands of Long Chen, if he didn't bring back Long Chen's head, even if he returned to the imperial capital, his head would still be rolling on the ground. Die! Xie Chongfeng's body was like a rainbow, and the long spear in his right hand suddenly stretched out. The body of the spear swayed, and dozens of spear flowers were gouged out. There was a faint red glow on the spear, and the sound of explosions was unceasingly aimed at Long Chen's forehead. On the grandstand, Alchemist Su and the other 2 judges' faces immediately darkened, especially the old General Zhengjun. He roared and jumped down from the 100-meter-high platform. 9 dragon elephant phantoms appeared around him. Impudent! You actually dare to interfere with the grand competition of the 3 cities, using the power of the empire to interfere with the power of the clans. Elder Zheng landed on the ground, and the ground beneath his feet cracked and trembled. His voice was like a great bell. I am the son of the Jinyuan general, a major general under the first prince. Everyone, please mind your own business. I must kill this boy today. However, even though Elder Zheng rushed out, Xie Chongfeng's expression did not change. With a wave of his right hand, nearly 20 people immediately stopped Elder Zheng. Although these 20 people were only at LV2 to LV4 of the spiritual martial realm, which was far from being comparable to old General Zheng, they were enough to stall him for a while. Xie Chongfeng believed that he could kill Long Chen within a few breaths. What's more, there were nearly 80 soldiers of the spiritual martial realm behind him. For a moment, Long Chen was like a piece of meat on a chopping board. He was surrounded. The spear's shadows that filled the sky were about to land between Long Chen's eyebrows. Scram! However, right at this moment, the Qinggang sword in Long Chen's hand actually slashed horizontally at the critical moment, and it drew out a long sword light. Numerous inscriptions flickered incessantly on the hilt of the sword, and it was extremely dazzling. This was the last piece of top-grade spirit stone that Long Chen had embedded into the Green Ridge sword, dancing wind, and cloud. As the dazzling light swept out, an invisible airwave rose from Chong Chen's body and soared into the sky. The wind and clouds surged in the sky for a moment. The bright sky was suddenly covered with dark clouds. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. With the support of the formation, the effect of the supreme grade spirit stone was maximized. This sword strike was a 7th grade king rank martial skill, and its power was comparable to the attack of a soul formation stage cultivator. Ka. The long spear in Xie Chongfeng's hand shattered and turned into powder in an instant. Xie Chongfeng's originally confident face was instantly filled with shock. He felt a vast power coming from the long spear. Bang! His right arm was completely shattered, and his body was directly blasted 100 meters away. Blood splattered everywhere. However, all of this was not over. The people from the 12 families in the 3 cities all stared at Long Chen. Their bodies could not stop trembling. They only felt that his body was emitting a soul-stirring aura. Dozens of meters in front of him, the 100 soldiers in the spirit martial realm on the battle platform were all broken at the waist. The scene was extremely bloody, and countless people vomited incessantly. What is going on? That sword. How can that sword be so strong? As Elder Zheng defeated the 20 soldiers in front of him, he could not help but cry out when he saw this scene. The moment his voice fell, the Qinggang sword in Long Chen's hand shattered inch by inch and turned into stone powder. Long Chen's body could not help but twitch, and his face was as pale as paper. This sword strike was too strong. Even with his current body, he could not withstand it. The small amount of internal strength and spiritual power accumulated in the major acupoints in his body was almost wiped out. However, his footsteps did not stop. Instead, he picked up the long sword in the hands of the soldiers on the ground and slowly walked in front of Xie Chongfeng. With every step he took, his aura became stronger and his killing intent became stronger. He walked out of the pool of blood like a Shura king. Xie Chongfeng lay on the ground, convulsing. His internal organs were almost shattered because of Long Chen's sword strike. He could not imagine that a person in the 2nd level of the spirit martial realm could burst out a sword technique comparable to the spirit martial realm. No, don't kill me. My father is the Jinyuan general. He controls the northern army in the capital. My master is the crown prince. In less than 10 years, he will be the lord of the Black Dragon Empire. You can't kill me. Xie Chongfeng's mind completely collapsed under Long Chen's aura. Now, in his eyes, Long Chen, a 15-year-old boy, had a murderous aura that was far stronger than that of a general who had killed countless enemies on the battlefield. Unfortunately, his word did not slow down Long Chen's footsteps. In the distance, Elder Zheng heard Xie Chongfeng's words, and his face became serious. He frowned and shouted to Long Chen, "Young friend, you can't kill him. As long as you let him live, I, Zheng Jun, will make the decision today. He won't dare to retaliate." However, Long Chen's head was still moving forward. The long sword in his hand was still surging with cold light. "Young man, you can't kill him." Zheng Jun shouted and rushed out, trying to stop Long Chen. However, Long Chen was already standing in front of Xie Chongfeng. Then, he finally turned his head. His eyes were as cold as lightning. An aura of disdain spread out. Even Elder Zheng, who was at the later stage of the spirit martial realm, could not help but be stunned. Long Chen's voice was like an emperor's. He said, "There is no one in this world that I can't kill." As his voice fell, the sword light came out. Xie Chongfeng's head rolled out. The big families of the 3 cities stared at Long Chen as if they were looking at a madman. Xie Chongfeng was a major general of the empire, the son of the Jinyuan general. This person did not even blink and killed him just like that. At this time, Li Kong also woke up. When he saw the blood-dripping sword in Long Chen's hand, as well as the hundreds of spirit martial realm soldiers and Xie Changfeng who had died, and when he thought of how his 3 sons were no longer alive, he roared, "Kill! Today, my Li family will fight with your Long family to the death." As Li Kong rushed out, the elders of the Li family behind him looked at each other. Finally, they fell on Long Chen's trembling body and pale face. They all knew that the Long family and the Li family were like fire and water. Now, Long Chen's combat power was really terrifying. Moreover, he had won first place in the grand competition of the 3 cities. If he did not die today, the Li family would be doomed eternally. Now, many elders of the Long family were killed by Xie Changfeng. The strongest, Long Tianxing, was seriously injured. This might be the best time. Thinking of this, the elders of the Li family looked at each other. They actually led thousands of elites of the Li family to Long Chun. "Protect my son. Where are the disciples of the Long family?" Long Tianxing spat out a mouthful of blood. He endured the pain in his body and roared. Chapter 44. A Battle Royale. Dark clouds surged, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. The northern plains were filled with killing intent. Apart from the 4 great families of Iron Mountain City, the other families of Fierce Tiger City and Blood Red City watched coldly from the sidelines. They retreated 1,000 meters away, as if they were unwilling to participate in this battle. Only the Gu family of Iron Mountain City did not move, as if they were waiting to see what would happen. The Lin family also retreated after a while. Long Chun did not expect that thousands of Li family elites would attack the Li family during the tournament of the 3 cities. Therefore, he was not prepared. In his previous life, Li Tian had obtained the first place and obtained the support of the various great clans. It was only 3 days later that they joined forces to destroy the Long clan. But now, because of the deaths of Li Yuanwu and Xie Changfeng, Li Kong had completely lost his mind and started the war in advance. Of course, the most important reason was that Long Chun had shown great potential. The Li family knew that if they did not attack today, they would face an unprecedented blow. Seeing the Li family attack, the Long family immediately attacked. Both the elders and the younger generation of the 2 great families fell into a chaotic battle. The majestic rain, accompanied by the sound of swords and shadows of dragons and elephants, fell from the sky. In the stands, Su Lao frowned, but did not attack. In the Black Dragon Empire, if they interfered with the battle between the great families, it would easily arouse suspicion and even cause a disaster. "Chinner, quickly leave. Today, even if my Long family is destroyed, you must not die. In the future, you must avenge us." Long Chen shouted as he swatted away Li Kang's attack. His body was covered in rainwater and blood. Long Chen clenched his fist, but he did not have the slightest intention to leave. At this moment, his fist was already deeply embedded in his palm. His eyes were filled with unprecedented madness. In this life, he would not let this tragedy happen again. Long Chun endured the aftereffects of the attack just now and quickly rushed to the purple-striped sword on the stands. There were bottles of pills on it. The top 10 of the 3 cities tournament will receive 200 pills. As long as there are pills and spiritual energy, he will have a solution. "Old bastard Gu, why are you still not attacking? If my Li family is defeated, do you think the Gu family will still exist? During this period of time, you have suppressed the Long family and many other things. Do you need me to say it myself?" At this moment, Li Kong shouted crazily. He wanted to drag the Gu family into the battle. Although the Li family had the advantage now, once Long Chun escaped and entered the royal school, the Li family will definitely pay a heavy price. The Gu family patriarch hesitated for a long time, thinking that the Long family's defeat was already apparent. Xie Changfeng's attack that killed several elders and injured Long Tianxing had paved the way for them. As for Long Chen's shocking attack, It was definitely not his own strength. It was definitely some kind of secret technique that he couldn't use for the time being. The Gu Clan master had a myriad of thoughts. In the end, he shouted, "Disciples of the Gu Clan, listen up. Kill Long Chun." Following his order, thousands of people swarmed over. More than a dozen powerhouses at the third level of the spiritual martial realm rushed towards Long Chun, who was running towards the stands. Long Chun was holding a long sword, and his clothes were soaked. He was about to rush to the stands, but he was stopped by 2 level 3 spiritual martial realm cultivators who were good at movement techniques. Die. The two of them did not hesitate at all. 2 shadows of swords slashed down, splashing water everywhere. Long Chun didn't stop and smiled coldly. Even though he had only broken through to the 2nd Ling Qi layer, he was as strong as a cultivator of the 4th Ling Qi layer. Even though he was weak, he didn't care about 2 cultivators of the 3rd Ling Qi layer. Imperial Wind Sword Technique. The sword was like a shadow, creating a loud sound. It swept through layers of water and fell towards the 2 level 2 spiritual martial realm cultivators. After slashing, Long Chun did not look back and continued to move forward. A line of blood slowly appeared on the necks of the 2 Gu family cultivators. With a splash, the 2 of them fell into the water. "Lin Feiyu, come back." At the same time, a young man from the Lin family flew out and shouted, "Father, if the Long family is defeated, the Lin family will be implicated. Moreover, Long Chun saved my life. If you don't want to kill him today, I am willing to die with him." No one expected that someone from the Lin family, who was about to retreat, would rush into the battle. "Father, what Lin Feiyu said makes sense. We can't just stand by and watch," the young master of the Lin family said as Lin Feiyu rushed out. The head of the Lin family looked at Long Tianqing, who was fighting fiercely. Finally, he held the long sword in his hand and led the Gu family to join the battle. In an instant, nearly 10,000 people began to fight in the northern plain. The people from the Red Blood City and the Fierce Tiger City looked on coldly. They thought that even if the Lin family joined the battle, the Long family would be destroyed. Long Tianqing was severely injured, and the elder of the spiritual martial realm was killed by Xie Changfeng. The power of the 4 families was not balanced. If it were not for the Empire's law that prohibited cross-city battles, the families from the Red Blood City and the Fierce Tiger City would have joined the battle. The Empire made such a law because they considered that the grand competition of the 3 cities would cause chaos in the major cities. Once there was a large-scale battle across the cities, the Empire would suppress it and kill the 3 families. Only the 4 families of the Iron Mountain City could participate in the Iron Mountain City's competition. "Little brother, you won first place. These 200 spirit charging pills are yours. Also, this wind-chanting purple vein sword and this letter of recommendation." Before Long Chun stepped onto the spectator stand, a beautiful figure appeared in front of him. Her voice was pure and soft. She held a pile of things in her hands and gave it to him. "Louis," on the spectator stand, Alchemist Su, Jianzhua Bufan, and General Zheng were surprised. They explained, "This is not against the Empire's law. These things are a reward for him. What's wrong with giving them to him in advance? This child is definitely not an ordinary person. In the future, he will definitely be a dragon among men. If not for the fact that the First Prince's faction is in control of the Imperial Court, even I would turn a blind eye and save this brat. Unfortunately, even if you give these things to him, what's the use? That shocking blow just now must have caused him a great burden. How can we wait for him to recover his cultivation?" Zhuo Bufan shook his head and sighed. General Zheng Jun's face was gloomy. He was unhappy with the Long family situation. He said angrily, "If Xie Changfeng had not violated the Empire's law, the Long family would not have ended up like this. Now, almost all the elders of the Long family in the spiritual martial realm have lost their ability to fight. Only Long Tianqing is holding on with his cultivation at the 5th level of the spiritual martial realm. Boy, come up quickly. I will protect you today. Let's see what you can do." Long Chen looked at the red-faced old general and felt warm in his heart. However, he knew that even if the old man took action, he could only protect him. He could not protect the Long family. Besides, he did not want a day to end like this. Senior, I appreciate your kindness. However, today is destined to be a day of blood flowing like a river. Chapter 45. One Sword, Slaughtering All Life. This brat, old General Zheng, stared blankly as Long Chun rushed into the crowd with his wind-chanting purple-veined sword in hand. Seeing Long Chun rushing over, Long Tianqing's expression changed drastically. He shouted, "Chun'er, hurry up and leave. Why did you come back? As long as you don't die, the Long family will definitely take revenge." "Haha, it's too late. Brother Gu, I'll hold Long Tianqing back. You quickly kill Long Chun. He definitely won't be able to use that heaven-shaking attack again." Li Kang's expression instantly turned fierce when he saw Long Chun charging into the crowd. He shouted in a hoarse voice. The head of the Gu family immediately reacted. Compared to the entire Long family, Long Chun was the one that had to be killed. Whoosh! Whoosh! The head of the Gu clan flew out with a few strong warriors of the spiritual martial realm. They rushed straight towards Long Chun. Soon, Long Chun was surrounded. "If you don't want to take the path to heaven, then go down and die." As the Gu family laughed sinisterly, the shadows of dragons and elephants soared into the sky. Numerous martial artists of the spiritual martial realm wielded their swords and sabers and charged towards Long Chun. At this moment, Long Chun also laughed. This laughter was extremely deranged, because today he was going to completely rewrite history. Not only would the Long family not be destroyed today, but they would also become stronger from today onwards. The maniacal laughter shook everyone. Under everyone's gaze, Long Chun held the purple vein sword in his right hand and threw all the pill bottles into the air with his left hand. Then, like a shooting star, each of the pill bottles exploded. In an instant, a fragrant aroma spread in all directions. One spirit surge pill after another fell into the blood-colored rainwater. Six Light's secret technique, devouring soul. As soon as Long Chun finished speaking, the surrounding space rumbled and rumbled. Surprisingly, the source of the rumbling was Long Chun. His body started to swell rapidly, and the illusory image of a dragon and elephant condensed rapidly behind him. Streaks of almost solid spiritual qi rose from the ground around him and spiraled towards his mouth and nose, forming a six-light star array between his eyebrows. The Five Elements secret technique. This technique was similar to the one used by Li Yuanwu. It was a technique that could increase one's cultivation in a short period of time. However, this technique was only practiced by the core disciples of the Wanjian sect. It was also learned by Long Chun in his previous life. After using this technique, apart from the 3 days of weakness, there would not be any side effects. The only drawback was that there must be sufficient spiritual energy in the surroundings when using it. As the threads of spiritual energy flowed in, the surrounding people felt as if they had sunk into a swamp, and their speed suddenly slowed down. At this moment, Long Chun's body was glowing brightly, and he looked like a god. Every move he made was filled with immense pressure. Behind him, a third dragon-elephant phantom was beginning to condense. Dragon and elephant, 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 elephant 2. Elephant 4 dragon and elephant, 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 elephant. Elephant, elephant, and elephant. Elephant, 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 elephant. The whole scene quieted down. Countless eyes stared at Long Chun's back. Level 6 languaging? What kind of secret technique was this? It allowed him to have the strength of 4 dragon and elephants. This question was deeply engraved in the minds of the Gu family's head and the elders who rushed towards Long Chun. Because of this question, they would fall into the yellow spring together with them. Long Chun held the windy hum purple vein sword in his hand and walked towards the Gu clan leader and the others step by step. Then he slashed out with his right hand and countless wind blades appeared out of thin air, bringing with them the sound of strong winds and emitting a faint blue glow. Puchi Putong. One by one, bodies fell into a pool of blood. The Gu family's elders, including the Gu family's head, knelt on the ground and covered the blood on their necks. This sword was too fast. How could this be? How could this be? Li Kong was in a frenzy. The 6 dragon and elephant shadows behind Long Chun were like a few mountains, making it hard for everyone to breathe. The Gu family's young master, Gu Tianhua, killed 2 Long family's mortal martial realm disciples with 1 sword. His eyes turned red as he shouted angrily, "You dare to kill my father? Gu family, kill him. So what if you are strong? Can you kill thousands of people from our 2 families today? Even if our families are annihilated today, we will kill you." With Li Kang's order, thousands of Li family's disciples rushed towards Long Chun, ignoring the Long family's disciples. Even if some of them died, they didn't stop. At this moment, the 2 families' target was Long Chun. Everyone knew that if Long Chun didn't die, the Long family wouldn't lose today. However, when he saw the thousands of people from the Li and Gu family rushing over, sword light, saber light, and lightning filled Long Chen's eyes, all he could smell was blood. In his previous life, in order to avenge the annihilation of the Li clan, he had done everything he could to increase his cultivation after awakening the emperor's physique. During that time, he had killed countless enemies. That was why he was able to become the youngest ruler in the world in just over 200 years. Today, as Long Chen had said, was the day that blood would flow like a river. Those who kill will be killed by others. My hands have been stained with blood since I stepped onto the path of martial arts, but I have a clear conscience. In an instant, Long Chen's robe and long hair fluttered without any wind. A vast and boundless aura shot into the sky. It was as if he was no longer the young master of the Long family, but the dominator of the Dragon City who dominated the 10 heavens. 1 sword kill all. The dragon and elephant shadows behind Long Chen shattered. The sword in his hand flew out like a comet across the sky and rushed into the crowd. Poochie! Long Chen spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood. He retreated dozens of steps and leaned against the wall at the side of the fighting ring. He knew that since he had used this sword, the battle between the families was over. Li Kong was overjoyed when he saw Long Chen's weakened state. He raised his sword and was about to step forward. However, in the next moment, he realized that there was a hole in his chest. His strength gradually left him, and each step he took was more difficult than the last. Then, he fell into the muddy water with a plop. Buzz! Looking from behind Li Kong, one could see that the sword light was even brighter than the scarlet spiritual light. Poochie! Poochie! There were no screams, only the sound of flesh and blood being crushed. One by one, the disciples of the Gu and Li families fell into a pool of blood. With each death, the blood light became brighter. It was as if this sword would only stop when it had killed all the people in the world. 1, 2, 100, 200, 1,000. Wherever the sword light passed, the corpses of the Gu and Li families were everywhere. Devil, devil, you are a devil. Save me, I don't want to die. Run, run quickly. Finally, the Li and Gu clansmen who had been charging at Long Chun began to feel fear. Those who had been charging at Long Chun began to scramble away. Some of them even fell to the ground, urinating and defecating. However, the sword light did not stop, and the massacre did not stop. Long Chun had created the sword technique before he established the kingdom of God in his previous life. Later on, he felt that it was harmful to the harmony of heaven and earth, so he did not use it again. Now, he could only use 1/10,000th of his strength. In his previous life, he had used this technique to kill tens of thousands of demonic cultivators. At this moment, the people of the Long family were all stunned. However, there was no pity on their faces. If Long Chun had not intervened today, they would have been the ones on the ground. Chapter 46. At the time of departure, the dark clouds gradually dispersed, and the sound of thunder and rain also disappeared without a trace. Only corpses littered the plains north of the city, and blood flowed like a river. An hour had passed, or perhaps an hour had passed, or perhaps even a day had passed. Corpses continued to fall. Time passed too slowly. Such a scene was torture for anyone. Only Long Chun did not move his eyes away. He was the only one who stood in front of the countless corpses. Thousands of people were originally going to kill him, but now, only cold corpses were left. On the spectator's stand, Elder Zheng and the other two had completely lost their ability to think since Long Chen's sword slashed out. It was impossible for the three of them to block this sword. No one knew how much time had passed. When Long Chen's straight body fell to the ground, everyone finally regained their senses. After today, the Iron Mountain City would no longer have the four great clans. Only the Long clan and the Lin clan would remain. Just what kind of good fortune did this kid have? That secret technique, just now, and that strange sword strike are definitely not something that someone from our Black Dragon Empire can possess. Elder Zheng exclaimed. Then, he jumped down and flew to Long Chen's side. He lifted him up and carried him away from the plains north of the city, ignoring everyone's gazes. Zhuobu Fan, you can distribute the rewards to them here. I'll go and take a look. Elder Su also said quickly. After a series of instructions, before Zhuobu Fan agreed, he took Lu Yi and followed Elder Zheng. Zhuobu Fan subconsciously waved the feather fan in his hand, only to find that the feather fan had already fallen to the bottom of the stands, but he was unaware of it. Looking at the corpses all over the ground, he fiercely rubbed his pale cheeks. Let's clean up these corpses first. Then we'll distribute the rewards of the grand competition of the three cities, Zhuobu Fan said helplessly as he massaged his temples. As the sun set in the west, the plains in the north of the city were set ablaze. In just 2 days, the remaining members of the Li and Gu families were all chased out of Iron Mountain City. Long Tianqing of the Long family even became sworn brothers with the head of the Lin family. Together, they controlled the entire Iron Mountain City. On the surface, the Long family had become the most powerful family in Iron Mountain City. But in the dark, the two families were as strong as iron. Long Chen's first place in the three cities competition was also recognized by everyone. Blood Red City, Fierce Tiger City, and other large families also came to Iron Mountain Village to bow their heads to the Long family. No one would have thought that the Long family of the Iron Mountain Village, which had always been the weakest, would suddenly become a meritorious clan and control 3 large cities. The name of Long Chen's genius had spread to every family in the 3 cities. However, it wasn't until the 7th day that Long Chen returned to the Long family. The 7 of them had taken a large amount of Su Lao's healing pills. Even so, they were still somewhat weak at the moment. He had come here to bid farewell. Now that Long Chun had won first place in the 3 cities tournament, the Long clan had received the treatment of a clan of outstanding merit. 1 year later, the Long clan had become the overlord of the 3 cities, and Long Chun knew that if he wanted to continue, the only way was to leave Iron Mountain City and go to the 5 great sects. Only there would be endless resources and opportunities that would allow him to soar into the sky. After wiping out the Li and Gu families, he only felt relaxed. In the main hall, Long Tianqing stared at Long Chun for a long time without saying anything. In the end, he slowly asked a question similar to what the 3rd elder had asked before. Are you still my son? His words were full of doubts and puzzlement. No matter what, he couldn't believe that his son, who was called trash by everyone, had won first place in the 3 cities tournament in a flash. Moreover, he had single-handedly wiped out thousands of elite disciples from the Li and Gu families. Was this still his son? Long Chen looked at Long Tianqing, whose hair had turned white, in front of him. He thought of the stalwart figure of his previous life who had taken countless swords for him with his back. His eyes couldn't help but turn red, and he knelt on the ground with a plop. No matter if he was the current young master of the Long clan or the overlord of the Dragon City in his previous life, he was still Long Tianqing's son. The overlords didn't kneel to the heavens or the earth, but to his parents. Good. Long Tianqing walked down emotionally. His eyes were wet as he hugged Long Chun in his arms. After a long time, Long Tianqing finally calmed down. He didn't ask why Long Chun had such a change, or what kind of opportunity he had obtained. To him, it was enough that Long Chun was still his son. However, his expression turned serious as he said to Long Chun in a deep voice, "Chun, are you going to the imperial capital this time?" Long Chun nodded. If he wanted to enter the five big sects, he could only go through the so-called path of immortality. However, there was still a year before the path of immortality opened. At that time, the top 3 youths in the Black Dragon Empire would compete for a place on the path of immortality. Before that, if he could enter the Imperial College and obtain the support of the Empire's resources, Long Chun believed that he would have the opportunity to enter the soul formation stage within a year. At that time, he would definitely be able to walk on the path of immortality of the 5 big sections. Seeing Long Chun nod, Long Tianxing's frown deepened. He shook his head and said, "If it was in the past, I would have been more than happy to be able to enter the Imperial College. However, I don't want you to go now. Our Long clan has become a #1 clan in the 3 cities. In the next year, we will be treated as a clan with outstanding military achievements. You will be the safest in the clan." Hearing this, Long Chen's heart warmed. How could he not know what Long Tianxing meant? He had personally killed the son of the Jinyuan general and the first prince's junior, Li Yuanwu. Just these 2 alone made the imperial capital like a dragon's pool and a tiger's den. However, it was precisely because of this that Long Chun wanted to leave. He wanted to go to the imperial capital. It wasn't just because of the resources. It wasn't just because he wanted to vent his anger. It was because this was the only way for the Long family to be safe and sound. As long as Long Chun, the instigator, went to the imperial capital, even the Jinyuan general and the first prince wouldn't vent their anger on a family that had been conferred a title by the empire. "Father, there's no need to say more. This is not where my ambition lies. There are some things that I must do." Long Chen's mind flashed back to the final battle. The ferocious faces of the transcendent ruler and his many enemies. He had to take revenge in this life. There was also his big brother, the ruler of the night. The 2 of them had met a year later on the path of immortality. Long Tianxing wanted to say something, but seeing the resolute look in Long Chen's eyes, he didn't say anything in the end. He only said, "Today, you and I will drink together." "All right." When the dishes were served, Qing Xian came up and poured wine for the 2 of them. The father and son cried and laughed until the next morning, when Long Tianxing fell asleep at the table. Long Chun shook his dizzy head and slowly stood up. He turned around and walked towards the inner courtyard of the Long clan. Mother was most afraid of parting. When grandfather left, she cried her eyes out. She was unwilling to go to his burial day. "Today, I will pay my respects in front of this door." As Long Chun spoke, he bowed. Then, through the crack in the door, he stuffed 3 books in. Of the 3 books, one was a king-level movement technique, one was a king-level sword technique, and one was a cultivation technique that could be cultivated to the peak of the soul formation stage. Long Chun had thought of leaving behind higher-level cultivation techniques and even sword techniques. However, he was afraid of getting into trouble because of his wealth, so he didn't overdo it. Chapter 47. Prince Qin lie outside the Iron Mountain City. Elder Zheng, Elder Su, and Zhuo Bufan were already waiting here. Beside them were 3 goshawk demonic beasts, each of which had a wingspan of tens of meters. Their flying speed was extremely fast, and they were one of the few flying demonic beasts in the Azure Dragon Empire. Behind them was a woman. She was by link from the Blood Red Cities by family, and was also 3rd place in the tournament of the 3 cities. As for the 2nd place, Li Yuanwu, he had already died, and the Li family had been completely destroyed, so all the rewards had been taken away. "Elder Zheng, are you sure you want to recommend him to the 3rd prince? The 3rd prince is not favored in the capital now, and there are many disputes between him and the 1st prince. Although this method has won him some life, I'm afraid he will completely offend the 1st prince because of you." Zhuo Bufan shook his head and reminded Elder Zheng when he saw Long Chun striding over with Qing Xian. Elder Zheng snorted coldly and did not say anything, but anyone could see the worry that flashed through his brows. Seeing Long Chun walk over, Before Elder Su could say anything, Lu Yi, who was behind him, opened her eyes wide and walked out first. She took Long Chen's arm into her arms and said, "Little brother, you said last time that you wanted to teach me alchemy. Let's ride on the same beast. I have a lot of questions to ask you." Long Chun and Elder Su were both stunned. Then they looked at Lu Yi's pure eyes, but could only smile helplessly. Long Chun cupped his fist to Elder Su and the other two and said, "I have no way to repay your kindness. If you need me in the future, there's no harm in asking." A few days ago, after the tournament of the three cities, Long Chun had repeatedly used power that far exceeded his current level, causing a great burden on his body. If Alchemist Su had not helped him heal his injuries, he would not have been so relaxed now. Zhuo Bufan in front of him was a civil official in the Third Prince's camp. Under Elder Zhang's recommendation, he was willing to bring Long Chun to the Third Prince. Actually, Long Chun did not really care about the First Prince. After all, once he entered the royal school, even the First Prince would not be able to kill him openly. At that time, it was hard to say who would be the one to suffer. However, it would be best if the Third Prince could restrain them on the surface. After exchanging some pleasantries, Alchemist Su invited Long Chun and Qing Xian to ride on the same goshawk demonic beast. He said, "He isn't the only one interested in the pill with a crack. This old man also wants to discuss it with little brother." Long Chun stepped onto the goshawk, but felt that Qing Xian, who was beside him, had a strange expression. Thinking of Lu Yi, he could not help but smile bitterly. After Bai Ling boarded Zhuo Bufan's goshawk, everyone headed straight for the eastern sky. Long Chun looked at the Iron Mountain city behind him, which was getting smaller and smaller, and clenched his fists tightly. If he did not know that he had the body of a great emperor and would be targeted by a transcendent dominator sooner or later, perhaps he would choose to stay here and cultivate for the rest of his life to become a great emperor. However, he knew that a transcendent dominator would find him one day, and before that, he had to reach the Dominator realm. Only then could he change the fate of his previous life and avenge the hatred of his previous life. The eagle soared, and 3 days passed. A vast city appeared in front of everyone. The capital of the Black Dragon Empire was located in the Great U City. The city walls were about 100 meters tall and majestic. The city was dozens of times larger than the Iron Mountain city. Businesses crisscrossed inside, and the streets were crisscrossed. In the center, there was a magnificent palace called the Azure Dragon Emperor Palace. In the Eastern Crown Prince's palace, a cold and resolute man, wearing a golden crown, sat on a golden throne carved with ancient tombs. His aura was dignified without being angry, as if he had been in a high position for a long time. Urgent report. Just as this person was reading the letter in front of him, a guard rushed in panic. Reporting to the Crown Prince, Major General Xie Chong Feng and Li Yuan Wu have died. This person's forehead was pressed against the ground, and his voice seemed to be trembling because of fear. Crack! The moment he finished speaking, the jade letter and crown Prince Qin Feng's hand was instantly shattered into pieces. He frowned deeply and asked in a deep voice, "Who killed them?" The first place of the Three Cities tournament near the Iron Mountain City, Long Chun from the Long family, has arrived at the Imperial capital. He will be summoned by the Imperial Preceptor and enter the Imperial College. As this person's voice fell, his head fell off from his body, and for a moment, blood splattered everywhere. Crown Prince Qin Feng was wearing a brocade robe. He slowly stood up from his seat and took a deep breath of the bloody smell. He actually showed a look of enjoyment and said lightly, "Long Chun good? Very good. Men, prepare a sedan to go to the Golden Imperial Palace." On the other side, Long Chun, Alchemist Su, and the others got off the goshawk demonic beast and stepped into the Imperial capital. Little friend Long, the Pill Pagoda is located in the south of the Imperial capital. If you have time, you must come here. With your understanding of medicinal pills, compared to a spirit-level alchemist, it's easy for you to reach out your hand. These 3 days have really enlightened me. Alchemist Su's face was full of admiration. In these 3 days, Long Chen's understanding of medicinal pills was simply beyond his imagination. If it weren't for the fact that Long Chen was only in his teens, he would have even thought that this guy in front of him was definitely a grandmaster-level alchemist. Little master, we have a deal. If I can't refine a cracked qi-gathering pill in the future, I will go to the Imperial College to find you. Lu Yi's face was full of anticipation. Alchemist Su smiled helplessly. He secretly thought that although Long Chen was young, in terms of understanding of medicinal pills, he was enough to be Lu Yi's master. This was also the reason why he came to the imperial capital, because it was very likely that Long Chen was the second alchemy genius like Lu Yi, or even better. You'd better hurry to the imperial palace. Today is the day when the imperial tutor will meet the winners of the Three Cities tournament. Alchemist Su and Lu Yi headed towards the wide street in the south. Looking along the street, they could even vaguely see a pentagonal tower that was nearly 1,000 meters tall. Zhuo Bufan, Elder Zheng. Just a moment after Alchemist Su left, Long Chen and the others headed straight for the Imperial Palace. Just as they stepped onto the main road that led directly to the Imperial Palace, they heard a loud and clear laugh. In front of them was a person dressed in a refreshing blue robe with a long sword at his waist. He was laughing loudly as he quickly ran over from afar. This person had a handsome appearance. His eyebrows were raised, and his eyes were like the edge of a sword. However, the moment he saw this person, Long Chen's expression suddenly froze. He cried out involuntarily, "Qin Lai, impudent!" As soon as Long Chen's voice came out, Zhuo Bufan's expression suddenly darkened. He shouted, "How dare you call the third prince by his name?" Elder Zheng was born in the military, so he naturally had less respect for these complicated formalities. However, he still stared at Long Chen with a puzzled expression, secretly wondering how he knew the third prince. Chapter 48. Chapter 48. His fate was unpredictable. On the long road, Long Chen stared at Qin Lai, who had a long sword at his waist. In the end, he shook his head and laughed. Qin Xian, who had been holding his arm, also had a puzzled look on her face. She and Long Chen had almost never been separated. She secretly thought that she had never seen this third prince before. Seeing that Long Chen had no intention of explaining himself, the five people laughed even louder. Long Chen stared at Qin Lai, his eyes glittering as he said, "In the future, I will help you ascend to the throne and rule the world." Sovereign's descent. Once these words were spoken, the expressions of Elder Zheng and the others, as well as the third Prince Qin Lai, involuntarily changed. The surrounding eunuchs and manservants also fell to their knees with a plop. They lowered their heads and pressed their faces against the limestone floor. All of them secretly wondered if this person had lost his mind. This was the imperial palace. Although the emperor was old and all the princes were fighting openly and covertly, how could such disgraceful words be said in public? These eunuchs and servants were afraid that they would be killed because of this, so they pretended that they didn't hear this at all. Qin Lai took a step forward, looked deeply at Long Chen, and said, "This brother has just drunk some wine, so he can't hold his liquor. Why don't you go to the side hall and drink a cup of tea to relieve your hangover?" As he spoke, he motioned for Zhuo Bufan and Elder Zheng to lead Long Chen in the side hall first. Zhuo Bufan and Elder Zheng looked at Long Chen in a daze and shook their heads. Although the third prince had good connections, it was easier said than done to ascend to the throne. Long Chen's words were a bit exaggerated. After the four of them left, Qin Lai said in a low voice, "Today my friend is speaking nonsense after drinking. Everyone, it's best if you pretend that you didn't hear anything. Otherwise, the surrounding eunuchs and manservants trembled, not daring to raise their heads." After a while, everyone stepped into the side hall. Zhuo Bufan stared at Long Chen and said with a wry smile, "Although Elder Zheng and I want to recommend you to the third prince, your flattery is too low. Although I think highly of you, your ability to brag has really opened my eyes." Elder Zheng couldn't help but roll his eyes at Long Chen. Long Chen did not express his opinion. He only felt that everything seemed to be fated. In his previous life, he had escaped from the hands of the various clans of the Leaf family within Iron Mountain City. Bearing the blood debt of the extermination of his family, he had traveled all the way to the north. In the end, he had left the Black Dragon Empire and was in dire straits. Just as he was about to starve to death, he met a benefactor. To this day, he still remembered the old man and the young man. The two of them gave him the clear sky chi refinement technique and several bottles of spirit-ranked second-grade pills, allowing him to awaken his emperor physique and soar to the heavens. That young man was the Qin Lai in front of him. However, the Qin Lai he met in his previous life had all his martial veins broken and was a cripple who had lost both his legs. Long Chun looked at Qin Lai, who was about to enter the hall with large strides. The words Qin Lai had said to him in his previous life when he had given him many benefits rang in his ears. I'm already a cripple. Since you have a blood debt, then I'll give you these pills and this cultivation technique. It's a pity that I only have these. I can't give you the sword at my waist. In my life, benevolence and righteousness are the most important things. The sword at my waist is the sword of benevolence and righteousness. Even though I'm a cripple now, I can't give up on benevolence and righteousness. In his previous life, Long Chun and Qin Lai had both taken shelter from the rain in the ruined temple. They were both fugitives and had only met for one night. According to the time in his previous life, it should have been more than half a year ago, which was before the opening of the Immortal Path. However, it was on this night that Long Chun received the first opportunity in his life. In the end, he awakened his emperor physique and stepped into the sovereign realm in more than 200 years. Since he had met him in this life, then he must repay this kindness. This must be Brother Long Chun. I already know from the letter that you killed Xie Chongfeng and Li Yuanwu. Xie Chongfeng violated the laws of the empire first. It's not your fault, so I will naturally help you. However, please don't mention what you just said. Qin Lai stared at Long Chun and instructed, as if he didn't care about what had just happened. Seeing that, Long Chun nodded and agreed. Qin Lai said, "Above the Golden Imperial Hall, the first-place winners of the large tournament should have arrived. Follow me to meet the Imperial Advisor, then we will go to the Imperial Academy. This way, even Big Brother can't do anything to you for a while." Qin Lai brought Long Chun and Bai Ling to the Golden Imperial Hall. Qing Xian and Elder Zheng were waiting in the side hall. The nine-sided Golden Imperial Hall was 9,990 meters long and wide. It was as if the entire hall was cast in gold. When Long Chun stepped into the Golden Imperial Hall, he couldn't help but take a few more glances. Immediately, he thought of the firmament god kingdom that he had established in his previous life and couldn't help but smile. In the hall, rows of young people who were less than 25 years old stood in place. These people were the first-place winners of the large tournament of the three cities, just like Long Chun. In front of the crowd, an old man with long eyebrows and a white beard, wearing a black and red robe with golden threads, stood beside the golden dragon throne. In front of him, under the 9 golden brick stairs, stood 5 young people in brocade clothes. The leader was the crown prince, Qin Feng, and the 4 people beside him were the other 4 princes. After every large tournament of the 3 cities, these princes would think of ways to recruit people, and this large tournament of the 3 cities was even more significant for the princes. The young people in front of them, including Long Chun, were all first-place winners of the large tournament of the 3 cities, which meant that the families behind them would rise and become the overlords of the 3 cities around them. As soon as Long Chun stepped into the hall, he felt an awe-inspiring murderous intent. His powerful divine thought instantly captured the source of the murderous intent. It was the crown prince, Qin Feng, who was at the front. The two of them looked at each other, but there was no fear in Long Chen's eyes. This made the crown prince, Qin Feng's eyes grow colder, as if he had been greatly provoked. After Long Chun arrived, the old man with long eyebrows and a white beard in front of him took out an astrolabe and said to everyone, "You are all first-place winners of the large tournament of the 3 cities, and your future is bright. I know a little about the art of divination. Today, I will determine your fates and predict your future and break through disasters. Hearing this, Long Chun noticed the old man. He looked at him and couldn't help but take a deep look at the third prince in front of him. This was because the Grand Tutor was none other than the old man who had traveled with the third prince in his previous life. It seemed that although Qin Lai's character was extremely righteous, he was not a pedantic person. He also had the heart to fight for the throne of the empire. This Grand Tutor was probably a hidden chess piece of Qin Lai. Long Chun even guessed that it was because of this that Qin Lai was able to survive in his previous life. Just as Long Chun was guessing, the white-bearded Grand Tutor had already started divining everyone's fates. Long Chun looked at the old man's divination and couldn't help but laugh. Diviners could determine fate, observe the stars, and know prosperity and decline. This profession was not rare, but those who could cultivate it were few and far between. However, this Tao was not completely cut off from the Tao of formations. At least in his previous life, Long Chun knew a diviner who had reached the level of sovereign. Chapter 49. Chapter 49. Demon Start Sun Chaser. The military counselor began to perform the divination one by one. Dense spiritual light flickered on the copper coins in his hand, as if they were drawing out the positions of the stars. There are 3 tribulations in your life. You have already passed one of them. You will face the second tribulation when you are 30 years old. If you pass the tribulation, there is hope for you. The military counselor calculated 10 people in a row before stopping in front of a burly man. He pinched his fingers and said. His long eyebrows and white beard made him look like an immortal. The burly man was suddenly enlightened. He thought to himself that when he was 20 years old, he had a serious illness and almost lost his life. He repeatedly nodded. However, out of the dozens of people that the military advisor had calculated, he was the only one that was mentioned. The others did not express any opinion. Although they appeared to be in awe, they did not think so in their hearts. Following this calculation, the military counselor had evaluated more than 100 people in total, but he had only pointed out a dozen or so people. These dozen or so people all had the potential to reach the deity transformation stage. Moreover, they had already survived 1 or even 2 calamities. Soon, they arrived at Long Chun. Just as the military advisor approached Long Chun, the greenish-brown copper coins in front of him actually stopped jumping with a clatter and fell to the ground. Everyone's attention was instantly attracted by this scene. The state preceptor also exclaimed softly and looked deeply at Long Chun. Soon after, there seemed to be stars swirling his eyes as he looked at Long Chun's forehead. However, after a while, his face became paler and paler. Poochie, just as he continued to observe, Long Chun's divine sense suddenly exploded and turned into a storm that attacked him. The imperial preceptor retreated more than 10 steps as blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Long Chun shook his head. He had already made his move in advance, but he did not expect that he would still be injured. If he had not used his divine will to forcefully shift his gaze away, he was afraid that he would have gone mad. Long Chun had the body of a great emperor, so he had unlimited possibilities. Even a sovereign realm clairvoyant couldn't predict his future. So how could this imperial preceptor do it? There's actually someone with such a destiny in this world. However, the imperial preceptor's expression changed drastically as his eyes trembled. He actually understood Long Chun's fate. The people around them suddenly became excited. They also saw the fear on the imperial preceptor's face. Several princes, including the third prince, quickly surrounded him. One of them asked, "What do you mean, imperial preceptor? Why does this person have destiny?" Long Chun also looked at the imperial preceptor in confusion. He wondered if his fate had changed after he was reborn. Was that why the imperial preceptor could tell? Unfortunately, the imperial advisor remained silent for a long time before he slowly said, "I was wrong. You have 4 tribulations in your life. I'm afraid it will be difficult for you to enter the divine transformation stage. And you all of and he. Then, The princes began to throw out olive branches to everyone, especially those who were being measured. Long Chun was the only one who turned to leave the hall. Just as he was about to step out of the hall, he was stopped by 2 guards. "You want to leave just like that?" A cold voice came from behind Long Chun. The person who spoke was the first prince, Qin Feng. Long Chun stopped in his tracks, but a cold smile appeared on his lips. He said indifferently, "Does the first prince still have something to say?" The murderous aura between Qin Feng's eyebrows was extremely dense. He stared at Long Chun with a murderous look in his eyes. For a moment, the temperature in the hall plummeted. The surrounding people also lowered their voices. The princes secretly thought that Long Chun was quite brave. He dared to speak to the first prince like that. In the imperial capital, the first prince had killed more people than the prisoners on death row. "Brother Long Chun, my palace is lacking a guest official. If you don't mind, are you willing to take the position?" At this moment, the third prince, Qin Lai, walked up and patted Long Chun's shoulder with a smile. Long Chun nodded. Since he had made up his mind to help the third prince, this guest elder's movement technique would indeed save him a lot of trouble. "Get out of the way." Seeing Long Chun nod, the third prince suddenly shouted. The 2 guards in front looked at each other and retreated. "Third brother, you've gone against me time and time again. One day, you'll regret it. Do you think that he'll be able to live after entering the royal school?" Seeing the 2 of them leave without turning back, the first Prince Qin Feng shouted in a deep voice. Unfortunately, Qin Lai ignored him and left with Long Chun. They left the main road and the imperial palace. "You can report directly to the imperial school. I'll promote you to a guest official position in the imperial household. With these 2 guarantees, the first prince won't dare to make a move on you in the near future," Qin Lai said. Long Chun nodded and didn't say anything else. He turned and left, heading directly to the imperial school that was built close to the imperial palace. After Long Chun left, the imperial tutor's figure appeared beside Qin Lai. The surrounding eunuchs were all stunned, as if they had lost consciousness. "Third prince, you must take this person under your command. He will have a great opportunity in the future." The imperial tutor stared at the direction Long Chun left and said to Qin Lai excitedly. Qin Lai asked in surprise, "I wonder what the imperial tutor saw in his fate. Demons dancing wildly, demon stars chasing the sun. His fate is boundless, vast and boundless. I only saw a small glimpse, but I lost 10 years of my life." The imperial tutor's voice echoed in Qin Lai's ears, but he had already disappeared. The surrounding eunuchs also regained consciousness, as if nothing had happened, leaving Qin Lai in a daze. "Long Chun, there are many high-ranking officials in the imperial school. It's better for you to bear with it." Elder Zheng knew that Long Chun had left, so he brought Qin Xian to the entrance of the imperial school to meet with Long Chun. After that, he bid farewell and left. Qin Xian stared at the imperial school's entrance in front of her and couldn't help but reveal an expression of envy. She had never walked out of Iron Mountain City in all these years. The imperial school was only a few hundred meters away from the imperial palace. The entrance was 1,000 meters long and wide, and there were 2 guards every 100 meters. Looking up, one could see that although the imperial school was located within the city, the area it occupied was even larger than the imperial palace. Especially after that, it actually extended out of the city along with numerous mountains. It was extremely majestic and magnificent. "Qin Xian, let's go in. After that, I will help you step into the spirit martial realm. I think that in less than half a year, you should be able to become an official student of the imperial school." Long Chun saw that Qin Xian was quite curious about the imperial school and couldn't help but say. After saying that, he pulled Qin Xian and walked toward the entrance. "Who are you? Take out your recommendation letter and state your city, clan, and name." The 2 of them had just stepped forward when a young man stared at their clothes and walked up impatiently. The imperial school was a place where the nobles of the empire cultivated. It was rare to see people wearing simple robes like Long Chun and Qin Xian. Long Chun took out his recommendation letter and stated his clan's name. When the guard saw that the recommendation letter stated that the first place of the grand competition of the 3 cities was bestowed by the emperor to enter the imperial school to cultivate, he took a deep look at Long Chun and prepared to let them in. However, when Long Chun pulled Qing Xian inside, they were stopped again. "You can go in, but she can't." The young man stared at Qing Xian for a few moments, and a hint of contempt flashed in his eyes. He stared at Long Chun and said playfully, Chapter 50. Chapter 50, A Useless Class. In front of the royal school's entrance, there would be a few young men dressed in luxurious brocade robes entering from time to time, with maids following behind them. However, Long Chun and Qing Xian were stopped. As soon as Long Chun finished speaking, before the young man could say anything, a young man with a big belly walked past him and said with a smile, "This brother is just a maid. What's wrong with giving her to someone else? After that, no one will stop you from bringing people here." Ha! As he spoke, he took a deep look at Qing Xian behind Long Chun. The person who was blocking the way also stared at Long Chun in amusement. The people who entered the royal school were all members of the royal palace, and there were even many princes and young masters. Thus, it was customary for them to bring along their maids, and after a little persuasion, everyone turned a blind eye to it. As for the person who stopped them, it was obvious that he had taken a liking to Qing Xian's beauty and felt that Long Chun had no background, so he made things difficult for him. "Yo, CFA, looks like it wasn't wrong for you to be forced to guard the gate by that hag from the array formation class. She didn't even let off a maid." The other gatekeepers at the side mocked. "Don't be so sarcastic. But guarding the door isn't completely useless. At least there's a pretty good girl in front of me." CFA smiled and reached out to hook Qing Xian's chin. Bang! Unfortunately, as soon as he stretched out his hand, he felt a strong force rushing into his internal organs from his chest. He rolled on the ground and flew dozens of meters away. Long Chun pulled Qing Xian behind him. He stared at CFA and said in a deep voice, "Now, do you still think that guarding the door is a good thing?" After Long Chun finished speaking, he threw the letter of recommendation on the ground and strode into the royal school with Qing Xian. If it wasn't for the fact that he had just arrived and didn't want to cause any trouble, he definitely wouldn't have let CFA off so easily. This newbie is really something. He actually dared to attack CFA directly. He's in for a treat now. The man who was originally mocking CFA did not expect Long Chun to act so decisively. Soon after, he shook his head and laughed. If it wasn't for the fact that CFA is the nephew of the Jinyuan general and has the backing of the Jinyuan general's disciple, Gongsun Xing, with his mediocre martial arts, he would have been beaten to a pulp by the junior students of the academy. That may be the case, but the Jinyuan general is still a subordinate of the first prince, and CFA is also favored by the general. I'm afraid this newcomer won't last long. He might even lose his life. Naturally, Long Chun didn't hear their conversation, but if he did, he wouldn't have been so lightly injured. This was because CFA was the nephew of the Jinyuan general, which meant that he and Xie Changfeng were cousins. Xie Changfeng had already died in the hands of Long Chun, and this enmity had already been formed. Qing Xian's face was full of guilt, as if he felt that he had caused trouble for Long Chun. He said firmly, "Young master, Qing Xian will definitely cultivate diligently from now on. I won't be a burden to you." Long Chun rubbed his hair lovingly and smiled. "Don't worry. Your young master is least afraid of trouble, and you will never be a burden to me." Qing Xian's face was full of happiness. Then he seemed to have thought of something and said, "Old General Zheng said that his granddaughter is also in the academy. He told us to look for her after we enter, and she will handle the admission procedures for us. He also said that the academy is full of snakes and dragons this year. If you have the chance, he hopes that young master can take care of his granddaughter. It seems like they'll be waiting for us if we follow the main road on the left." Under Qing Xuan's lead, the two of them walked along the main road and soon came across two women in light blue dresses. When they got close, Qing Xian took the lead to walk up and asked, "Are you old Mr. Zheng's granddaughter, Miss Zheng Fong?" The two women were tall and could be considered to be beauties. They were around 20 years old and looked like the young ladies of a prestigious family. Hearing Qing Xian's words, the two who were chatting happily suddenly froze. The woman with a beauty mark on her left side said in surprise, "You two are the people that old General Zheng was talking about? He even told me to listen to you and take care of me." "Oh my God." The woman's eyes swept over Long Chun and Qing Xian, and a look of contempt flashed across her face. "The way you're dressed can be considered unique in the royal school. In front of you is the registration area. Once you're done here, follow us for the first lesson. The girl called by Ling, who came before you, has already left." The other girl seemed to have completely lost interest. Waving her hand, she actually pulled Zheng Fong and ran toward the tall building diagonally across the street. Long Chen smiled and did not mind the two women's contempt. He was indebted to old General Zheng, and if this woman was in trouble, he would lend her a hand. He brought Qing Xian to the reporting area to receive an identity jade token and a storage ring. After that, the two of them walked towards the tall building that Zheng Fong and Qing Xian had just gone to. In the tall building, Zheng Fong said to her close friend Li Yuan, "I thought that the old man had found a disciple from the Yuan dynasty. I didn't think that it would be such a young man. Furthermore, looking at the way they're dressed, I'm afraid that they're from the so-called Three Cities tournament." "That's right. If it weren't for the emperor's kindness, this kind of person would never be able to enter the royal school. I think he might even have some improper thoughts about you." Li Yuan laughed and joked. "What are you talking about? The man that I fancy must have a family background of at least a third-rank official. His cultivation must at least reach the soul formation stage in the future. I'm not interested in him. However, since the old man has said so, we'll help him if he needs help." As the two of them were chatting, Long Chun walked in with Qing Xian. Seeing that there were no seats around, Zheng Fong frowned and called out, "The two of you, come and sit here." The female teacher in this spell formation class is famous for being strict. Although this class is not very useful, no one dares to skip class. The two of you came just in time. According to the class schedule, those who report today will have to attend this class. I'm afraid that those who come later will have a hard time. Long Chun looked around and saw that the hundreds of seats in the class were already filled. He secretly thought that those who came later could only stand. He brought Qing Xian and sat down beside Zheng Fong. Although this Zheng Fong had a bit of a Missy's temper, she didn't seem to have a bad character. Not long after Long Chen sat down, a tall and beautiful woman of about 28 or 29 years old, wearing black tights, walked in with a ruler in her hand. Her hair was tied up high, and her full chest seemed even more perky because of the tights. Yin Li, the last disciple of the Black Dragon Empire's spell formation grandmaster, Oyezi. She was the only spell formation teacher in the royal school. As her name implied, she was extremely strict. However, there was almost no male who was absent from her class. It was just that the eyes of the male students in the class were mostly focused on her slender pair of legs and her perky chest. The field of spell formations has almost died out. What's left is just a remnant branch. I'm afraid that this class will only teach some low-level spell formations that can be used to enhance weapons. If there's a chance in the future, I'd better not attend these classes. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.